Council regular meeting to be held at 4:30 p.m. on Monday, August 1st, 2016, Friendswood City Hall, Council Chambers 910 South Friendswood Drive, Friendswood, Texas, regarding the items of business according to the agenda listed below. Call the meeting to order. Invocation, Pastor Lynn Colby with Calvary Chapel Church. And then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, both United States and Texas. So remain standing, please.
Lord, we thank you that we can come before you this evening to seek your will, your wisdom, as we discuss matters concerning the city and the issues on the agenda for tonight. Lord, I just thank you that before we do anything, we ask for you to watch over this meeting, to guide and direct the thoughts and the desires of all of us here attending. Thank you again for the city council who asked for prayer before each meeting. What a privilege it is, Lord, just to pray to you and to seek your wisdom. I also want to lift up the police officers in this city and throughout the area in Texas and throughout our whole country who have been under attack. We just pray, Lord, you would protect them and watch over them as they perform their duty to protect us. So we thank you for all the police officers, all the law enforcement that work to keep our cities safe. Again, bless our evening, bless the things that are discussed, and may all this be done for your glory. Through the power of your Holy Spirit, it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Item 4, communication from the public. To comply with the provisions of the Open Meetings Act, the City Council may not deliberate on items discussed under this agenda item. The Council may refer this item to the City Manager or direct this item to be placed on the next regular Council agenda. PowerPoint presentations are not conducted during the citizens' comment period. Do we have anybody that would like to address the Council? Anybody else?
Mayor and Council, I appreciate the opportunity to address you. I actually thought this was going to come a little later, but I'll take this opportunity. Tonight before you is the subject of the trails of Friendswood, and there's been a lot said about this, a lot of pros and cons, but what I thought I might do is just bring more of a little bit of a historic look, briefly, of lot size in the city of Friendswood. There's been argumentation that City Council has been absolutely consistent for the last 5 years regards to the need for 90 by 130 lots. Subdivisions in the 60s and 70s that have been developed on 1 to 3 acre lots have been cited as proof of this desire for Friendswood at large to have only large lots, or that that's the vision of the city. I really believe this is a little misleading because they only really present 2 snapshots of our city's 120-year history. I believe a more holistic view reflects that the city of Friendswood, in regards to lot size, has actually been in transition for its entire 120-year history. In support of this view, I would submit to you that for the first 70 years of our community's development, we were largely an agrarian society, populated by small farmers who worked on farms that were anywhere from 10 to 100 acres by way of average. In the 60s, agriculture began to give way to urbanization. Home sizes began to reflect this change, and they moved more in the 1 to 5 acre range. Workers moved off the farms and into offices. By the 80s, the scarcity of land and its dramatically increasing prices again dictated change, with Parkwood Village in 1986 being the first 55-foot lot subdivision, and there were many, many others that followed. These smaller lots and homes proved wildly popular, especially amongst our seniors who wanted to stay in Friendswood in a single-family format, but had found themselves, as they grew older, unable to continue to mow a quarter-acre lot, which is the 90 by 130 standard that's been suggested. Also, the price point was popular. Today, by all conservative estimates, the price point on a 90 by 130 lot is about $500,000, whereas the 55-foot lot generates about a $330,000 price point. Even our returning graduates are by and large having to move for new housing that suits them over to League City because we don't have this lower price point. And so we lose a lot of our great returning citizens to other cities. In summary, lot size in Friendswood has never been static. There's never been a single vision of what it should be. We actually are a community whose lot sizes have always been in transition, and the driving force of that transition has always been twofold: the needs of our citizens and their desires. The same needs and desires that make the Trails of Friendswood a desirable subdivision format for our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to address us? Cindy, I'll move on to the work session. A, budget presentation.
Mr. Mayor, while Cindy's coming, let me thank and acknowledge the hard work of our folks in administrative services, Cindy, Katina, Jennifer, as well as the entire senior staff in working together in developing this budget. I was going to make just a couple of comments first to let you know the framework that we operated under, basically. Number one, that was that there would be no new programs other than those that are being brought about by virtue of a new facility such as Lake Friendswood or something like that. We'll do our very best to continue providing high-quality services to our citizens and other customers that they've come to enjoy and expect from us. You'll also notice in this budget an emphasis on continuing to provide for those who deliver services, whether that's an employee who works in streets or water and sewer, the library, parks, or one of our administrative offices in City Hall, or our public safety employees, fire, EMS, and fire marshal's office or police department. We are, by and large, a service delivery organization. That takes people, and virtually a little over 70% or approximately 70% of our operating budget is comprised of personnel expenses. You'll also see that we included $500,000 for street condition assessment and maintenance from our operating budget, as well as adding almost $1.3 million more for street maintenance from the recently voter-approved sales tax, bringing that total streets maintenance budget to just under $1.8 million. And finally, we've done this by calculating the effective tax rate for next year, are coming as closely as we can, with Cindy and Katina and Jennifer operating with some of the information they need, but we're always operating with one hand tied behind our back, and that Harris County doesn't deliver certified values until well after we have to deliver a budget to you. But we have, through their work, projected the effective tax rate. We are also, the budget is based on that rate plus 2.39 cents to cover the impact of additional operating expenses and debt service for the bond projects that are coming online. And you'll recall that 2 to 3 years ago, City Council, as this election was being discussed, asked us or directed staff to calculate or project the impact of the bond projects, that $20.085 million of debt. If they passed, what's this going to cost the citizens in both operating cost and in debt service? And we've done that, and in this year's budget, That impact is 2.39 cents. So we fully open about that. We think it's a very good budget. It does not have everything in it that folks have felt they need or want, but it has enough in it at this point that we feel we can be competitive with other cities as far as maintaining our employees and continuing to provide those services that, as I said, folks are expecting us to do. So with that having been said, Cindy and Katina are going to, or at least Cindy's going to start, and if she tag teams, that's fine. If she takes it all, that's okay too.
No, we're going to tag team.
She will lead through a summary of the budget that's been presented to you, and as always, if you have questions as we go through it, please fire away.
Thank you, Roger. And as Roger mentioned, I want to thank Katina and Jennifer for all of their time and for the budget team. This is a team process in this city, and I think that makes it a better process. But we don't know if you've had an opportunity to look at the budget yet, so we're going to give a real high-level overview, and feel free to ask questions along the way, and we're here to serve. So we'll start with the budget development focus. Several years ago, we started with the process of identifying current services and trying to hold to say our goals are to stay with what services we currently perform, and what budget does it take to maintain that level of service. Then another goal of our focus was on the public safety and equipment. The streets have long been a topic, and having the street assessment and those improvements were included in the budget, as Roger mentioned. And the impact of the bond projects, that became a talking point, not only originally just what we needed to include in maintenance and operations as facilities come on board and get completed, but then the impact on our rate. When we talk about our revenues, as Roger mentioned too, the property taxes are our biggest revenue source. You'll also notice in this presentation, if we look at the yellow pie, that's miscellaneous receipts. That's 13%. What the big numbers that are in miscellaneous receipts are bond proceeds. Those would be the proceeds that we've just issued this year, and that's the biggest portion of that number. The next one is the use of fund balance and retained earnings. What that is bonds that were issued in prior years that we still haven't spent that money. So those are some big numbers. We wanted to go ahead and identify them, that they're kind of already spoken for, or they are spoken for. Then we also wanted to remind everyone, if you look at that sales tax number, that sales tax includes what the voters voted for in May. So those revenues are included in there. The other biggest number on this slide is charges for services, which is 11 million. That's our water and sewer revenue that supports all of the water and sewer activities.
And shifting a little bit to our total expenditures for this year's budget. This includes all funds, not just general fund and water and sewer, as Cindy had mentioned. Some of the larger pieces of our expenditures are capital improvements. As Cindy mentioned, we have several of the projects that were approved by the voters in 2013, and we also have the water and sewer projects that were approved and included in the 2016 water and sewer revenue bond issue that we just did in January, I believe, of this year. Our debt service amount there of the $6.5 million, that's our debt service obligation. That's principal, interest, and physical agent fees that we have to pay in 2017 for debt that we've issued in prior years. Our community service and development, our community development and, I'm sorry, Mr. Rocky.
Does the debt service number include both water and general?
On this slide, yes, sir, it does. Our community development and public works, This includes our planning, our operations for planning and zoning, our inspections, code enforcement, as well as our water and sewer utility and operations. It's water line maintenance, sewer line maintenance, crews, also just the maintenance of the facilities, water plants and lift stations. It also includes our purchased water from the city of Houston, as well as the Black Hawk Water Waste Treatment Plant expenditures. General government includes our city manager's office, our operational expenses for the city manager's office, city secretary's office, city attorney is in general government, as well as administrative services. With administrative services, you have our insurance, general liability insurance for the city facilities. It also includes our appraisal district services, tax collection appraisal district services. So a lot of the services related to property taxes are included in that general government amount. Public safety includes our police, our volunteer fire department, as the contract services for the volunteer fire department and EMS, as well as fire marshal's office, emergency management is included in that amount. Parks and recreation, the 4.4 million, it's including the operations for all of the city parks, as well as the facilities, building facilities, and our parks and operations activities. Here we also have $269,000 this year for vehicle replacements. In this year's budget, we have replacements of five police department vehicles. That's 4 patrol units and 1 CID vehicle, and we also have 1 public works truck that will be replaced in this year's budget. We wanted to include this slide. It's also in your budget document. This is our operational expenses by category. This includes the general fund operational expenses as well as water and sewer. And this particular chart shows really how we mentioned that we want to maintain our current services, and this shows a 3-year last year actuals, as well as this year where we project to finish this year, and what's in our proposed budget. And it really shows that the growth that we're seeing, it's in our little bit of growth in our personnel year over year, but the rest, the non-personnel expenditures are really staying pretty close to flat. A little bit of a bump with where our capital outlay and some of the other small but not as large. It shows that as Roger mentioned, our personnel is our largest expense. Back to Cindy to take care of, to talk about the general fund.
The general fund and the water and sewer fund are our 2 biggest revenues, and that's the reason we spend a lot more time with those funds. We have a lot of other funds, but in this discussion, we'll just keep it at the general fund and water and sewer level. As we've discussed, that property tax is $15.2 million of our 26.1. Sales tax is $5.4 million, and that's up about $416,000. We saw an increase this year of about that much, and we've included that in next year's projections.
Cindy, real quick.
Yes.
You probably said it earlier, but just to clarify, does that include the increase in the percentage sales tax this year?
It doesn't in that number right there. We do have, if on another chart, it was 7.2.
7.1. So this is just general fund.
This is just a general fund. And that's a good point too, is that what we're doing with the funds as they come in for the election is it's not going to be funneled through the general fund. It's going to be set up in a fund by itself, and it's in your budget document in that manner. That way it's tracked separate. We're hoping that what we get from the state is something that we can break down that way, but we counseled with our audit firm and they said this was the proper way to do that. So thank you for asking that.
We don't get that revenue till October, right?
Right. December, by the time we get it, they'll start collecting it, but it'll be the end of the quarter. Our franchise tax, it's 1.6 million, and that's all of the Texas, New Mexico, cable, all of those lumped into the franchise. That's up about 13,000. Our fines are $747,000. They're down about $95,000. Permits are up about $63,000. Our intergovernmental revenues are $239,000, and we just have a little slight decrease in those in the upcoming year. Our charges for services would be facility rental, recreation fees, things like that, is up about $22,000. And then what we have, the miscellaneous category would be interest, our cell tower agreements, et cetera. Those are up about $53,000. The interfund transfer at the end, it's estimated to go up about $37,000. That transfer is a calculated amount coming from our water and sewer fund to the general fund, and that covers things like city manager's salary, my salary, that is split. So that is the amount of the transfer to let the water and sewer fund, enterprise fund pay for itself, pay for the operations. On the tax rate, and it's kind of funny that our estimated tax rate now is 5.678, and but we have calculated that amount. Like we want to emphasize that that's still an estimate. We have our certified values from Galveston County. We're waiting on Harris County, so we've done our best estimate as we do at this time to calculate that rate. We also did. We looked at several things, including, I don't know if we have it on this chart, we looked at the impact of the maintenance and operations for any of the bond projects to see what that impact was on the rate, and it's a very, very small number, but we've included that in there. Do you remember what the? It's a very tiny piece at this point. So what this chart shows is where the effective rate is calculated with a 0.544, and then our proposed rate and our current tax rate. And you can see in the chart what the different levels generate. The main thing, as Roger mentioned, was when we built out the rate, our debt service had shifted, it had grown, so $600,000 more was going to pay for those debt payments than was there. It's taken the two issuances to bring us to that level.
And our O&M went up about $770,000, right?
Yes.
Shifting back, as far as our general fund expenditures for this year, and this is only general funds, 26.1 million. Of that amount, about 18.1 million is personnel. This year's budget, or proposed budget, includes health and dental insurance increases totaling about 137,000. Our health insurance increase, and we'll talk more about this at another section of the meeting tonight. Our health insurance, depending on the elections or the election that employees take with the plans and the plans that we are have looked at, it could be 6 to 8% health insurance increase. Dental is about 5%. And our workers' comp rates this year increased, not only the modifier, but some of the workers' comp classifications. We saw increases there. So overall, our workers' comp expense in this year's budget went up about 54%. So that was pretty significant. We were told at that time that depending on the experience, the incident experience, that number could change next year. It could work in our favor. It just depends. This year's budget includes a merit increase, and that's on an average of 2.75%. For the general fund, that equated with the salaries and the benefits, or the salaries and other expenses related to salaries, about $377,000. In this year's budget, we've also added on the general fund, included in the proposed budget is an addition of 3.95 full-time equivalents, and those are listed there. We have 2 full-time police officers scheduled to be mid-year hires in this year's budget. We also have 3 part-time park attendants that are directly related to the bond projects and the park improvements that we are expecting to come online this year. We also have funding for one full-time paramedic with the volunteer fire department, and we also have a part-time library page, and we're proposing to cover this by reallocating funds within the operating budget, so there won't be any additional funding required for that library page. We also have in the budget to upgrade one administrative assistant, or administrative clerk, and that's in the Parks Department as well. Our non-personnel expenses are about $8 million. This is up about $400,000 from last year. The majority of that is in services, and as Cindy mentioned, we scrub the budget each year looking for how and what we need to operate the budget. So it varies, but this year our net increase is about $400,000. We also included in this year's proposed budget the $500,000 that we've had in the budget for street maintenance. It's proposed that about $75,000 of that will go to the street assessment study, and then the remaining will be available for street improvements. This year's proposed budget includes forces at work and decision packages that were proposed by the departments. Those were vetted by the budget team. We reviewed those, went through those, looked at what our available funding was, and prioritized those accordingly, and they equaled about $711,000.
Katina, do you want to explain the difference between what a force
Sure.
at work is?
I will. A force at work, council probably knows this, but for the public, forces at work are items or expenses that are really out of staff's immediate control. It may be mandates from regulatory agencies. It could be something like fuel or electricity in some other years. This year, fuel wasn't so much of an issue because we've had low fuel prices, but in some years, forces at work have been fuel charges. Yes, sir. Mr.
Do you have
Gustafson.
a breakout of what those forces at work are?
Yes, sir, we do. We actually have it later. Mhm. Yes, sir, and it's also in your, you're right. Okay. And here we are.
Speaking of the day.
Our forces at work. Actually, the appraisal district services we built that
Just
into
this-
we built it into our current services budget because we'll have to operate that. But it was 20, I don't want to misquote.
How much was it? Yeah, I was gonna say that the additional money.
Yes.
Yeah. Last year, mind if I speak? Go ahead. I believe last year they came at us with an attempt at a 30% increase in their budget. To their credit, this year it's only 10, but, again, the mayor went down very effectively, helped to argue their budget downward, and, I'm gonna talk about doing that again.
It was effective.
It was.
Go ahead, Katina.
Okay. So with the list that you see before you is the forces at work that were included in the proposed budget document, or in this year's proposed budget. As I don't know that we want to read each one.
We're good.
We might,
The list is there.
we want
You wanna
to
hit the
we just want to hit the high points too and explain that some of these, we consider them bond project impacts because there's things like you'll see at their Lake Friendswood mowing. We consider that when that park opens, we wanted to have all of these items in, so we put those bond impacts in as a force at work.
And the list in your budget document is page 254, if you wanted to reference that further. We can go to the next slide. This is the list of the funded decision packages that were included in the proposed budget. As I've mentioned before, we've gone through and vetted these as the budget team. City managers and assistant city managers also reviewed these items. We have several things here that have an alternative funding source, like the computer technology refresh. This is hardware, software for the computers throughout the city. We're estimating that to be about $395,000. We've included that as a capital lease, like a 3-year capital lease. So we will finance that expense, taking into consideration the life cycle of the computer equipment. And so we've held that at about a 3-year capital lease. The dump truck that's shown there, this is what we believe to be a pretty good example of what fund balance could be used for. It's a one-time expense, and it has quite a long life cycle for that type of vehicle. It can be purchased through the city's general fund, undesignated general fund balance. We have a couple of the other items, like the tactical vest replacements in the police department. There may be funding by year end to take care of that in this fiscal year. Our pavement management study is another one we had mentioned before that it's proposed in the budget that we would use a portion of the $500,000 that's in the operating budget for street maintenance. The merit for city employees, we've already talked about that briefly, and again, it's not a cost of living, it's based on employee performance. And then the decision packages, I don't know if the decision packages that are included in the proposed budget are listed there.
Tina, you jumped over the fire department radios.
Okay. Yes, sir. The radio replacement it's the migration for the volunteer fire department. This is covering it would replace 129 of the radios there at the volunteer fire department, and we're proposing to do this through capital lease or financing that equipment also over a 5-year period. So it doesn't have an impact on the operating budget, but it would be taken care of through debt service, through a portion of our debt service. Cindy will talk water sewer revenues briefly.
And just to remind everyone that the water and sewer funds operate separately from the general fund, except for that transfer from the water and sewer to cover operations. But we have in plan our water plan, and the rates are incrementally increasing. The only rates that have been impacted recently, and will be going for the next several years, is on our irrigation meters. And when we adopted this conservation rate structure, I think it's 3 years ago, we're starting to see right now the impact of that. We want to go ahead and let y'all know our revenues are down for this year. We think a lot of that was attributed to the heavy rainfall that we had in April and May, and we bill 60 days late, so we're still seeing some of that. But we also do hope that people have adopted conservation habits in their home. So we just wanted to let y'all know that was out there. The sewer revenue, we adopted the winter quarter a couple of years ago, and that seems to have been, now that it's settled out, people are used to that. Those revenues are down a bit, and we think it's because people have modified their habits to conserve during those months. So we're watching that carefully to make sure that we're going to be okay when we get to the end of the year. Our administrative fees, they're pretty much where budget normally is, the same with our water meter sales and the interest that we earned on those funds.
On our water and sewer expenditures, this year totaling about $12 million of that amount, about $2 million is personnel expenses. Just like on the general fund, we have the health and dental insurance increase. We also have merit included for those employees that are charged through the water and sewer operations fund. We also have the workers' comp rate increase there. On our non-personnel, it's about $10 million. On this side, from water and sewer, general fund to water sewer, we're more heavy on the water sewer side on the non-personnel expenditures. We have debt service obligations related to water and sewer bond issuance of 3 million. And then our non-personnel, like operational expenses, it's an increase of about 200,000 for this year on the water sewer side. We also have included in the proposed budget the 300,000 that we that we carry each year for sewer line maintenance issues, or sewer line maintenance. And we also have decision packages and forces at work on the water sewer side totaling a little over 200,000. Here's the list of those forces at work. And we're budgeted to, one of the TECQ requirements or mandates is that we have self-contained breathing apparatus for the workers that, I believe this is the one where they go into the small spaces to be able, you know, in case of emergency, for safety in OSHA. We also have employee merit listed there. And then the one other decision package was a tool set for the mechanics shop, and that'll be split between the general fund and water sewer fund. This is our list of unfunded decision packages. These are the items when we looked at the funding that was available for this year's budget and what we could include in the proposed budget. We had a number of items that that were below the funding line, so to speak. And these are listed here. They're on page, I believe, 55 or 255 in your proposed budget document. And the same for water sewer. We had some items that did not make the funding line on the water sewer side as well. We wanted to include a list here of the bond projects that we have going right now and the ones that are completed. You'll see those that are checked off the list. That means that they're either nearing completion or have been completed in FY16 in fiscal year 2016. The library expansion, Whispering Pines, Friendswood Link road expansion, the sports park improvements, the trail system, and the bridge connecting Old City Park to Stevenson Park. Renwick lighting and upgrades, and the downtown streetscape in front of City Hall and Fire Station number 1. The items that are listed there in blue are those items that are either underway in the design phase or have already started and that we are expecting to complete in this next fiscal year.
Before Katina moves off of that, she said that very quickly, but I just wanted to pause a second and have you look at that list and take more than the 5 seconds it took her to read that. There are a number of significant projects that were completed during this last year that, and more to come. But it's been quite a year, and we've got some employees that, if you look at them, you can tell it's been quite a year for them to handle these. But I do commend them for all the work that we've done, and these are some great projects. And again, more to come. So, Katina, I just wanted you to take a break and let us admire that just a minute.
Thank you,
And this is a list of the water and sewer rate drivers. These are the projects that were included in our utility rate study, the update that we did this past year for the utility rate study. These are the items or projects that are the guiding force for the rate structure that we've implemented and the proposed rate increases going forward for water and sewer. Moving into our next steps.
The next steps of the budget was delivered on Friday evening, almost Saturday morning, but that's okay. We are having this work session. We need to make some decisions on, because if you elect to have a tax rate that's higher than effective, there's certain other meeting requirements we have to have. This detail here lists option 1 and option 2, and we don't have to make decisions this evening. trying to think if there's anything we do need to decide, because we'll have the next work session on the 12th, so there's really no decisions tonight. But it's where we want to see, we do have the option 2, what that would do, we would go ahead and adopt the budget, but then not the tax rate until the 17th of October. But all of those dates are what we have to do to have the required space between public hearings and public meetings. So that will be something that we're going to need your input.
Cindy, I think obviously the main difference is the night of adoption being October 3rd or October 17th, and in order to reach those two, on the left-hand side under option 1, I believe September 29th is a Thursday night, so that route would take you to meeting on a Monday and a Thursday in the same week. Option 2 is a Monday night. September 26th, still a special night to meet. Both of those require a meeting on that night, but then meeting the following Monday, October 3rd, and then adopting on October 17th. So those are the real differences between the two. So as soon as you all have we will need some direction from y'all as far as what you'd like to do there.
By next meeting? By September?
I think that would work.
Yes. We also want to extend the invitation after you've got a chance to look at it. I don't know if we've got the electronic copy bookmarked yet. We'll get that bookmark here shortly and get that back out too for those of you that prefer the electronic copy. But our door is open. If you want to come in and discuss anything, go over anything, we're there for all of the decision packages. We've got a detail to support it, to explain why those were out there. And as we said, the budget team goes through those very carefully. But I just want to let you know we're here, and our doors are open to have any discussions you'd like to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rocky.
May I ask a couple of questions? In Roger's first letter, or first opening, there's a table, and at the bottom it says rollback tax rate. And I don't think I've ever seen that before. Would you explain what that is?
The rollback rate, there's pages and pages of what you have to do to calculate the effective tax rate, and then there's other components of tax rates. And the rollback rate, I don't want to misspeak about the percent. If we reach the rollback rate, if you exceed, if your rate goes up to a certain level, and Katina's going to verify that level, then if you adopt that rate, then the voters could petition that rate.
But we're not even close.
No, we're way
All right,
way low.
I hadn't seen that in previous years, and I was
Yeah.
just curious with that. My second question is, a year or two ago when we agreed to buy the new software, to run the city, it's my recollection, and I could be wrong, but we expected to get some efficiencies and savings from that. But I don't see those reflected in the budget yet.
They will be reflected. Administrative services is where the biggest portion, where you're going to see that. And to be honest, we've been running 3 positions short starting last May, going through this, because I needed to see how the software was going to work. I just didn't want to plug people in. And it may be to these guys and all administrative services detriment that I made that choice. But I couldn't just plug in bodies till I knew how the software was going to function. I have one position that we're developing it. We see now where it needs to go. And then there's going to be one that is not filled. Plus, some of the positions have changed. So there's going to be some operating savings and position changes because of that software.
So is that reflected in the budget anywhere for next year?
In the current services, we did reduce it, but we haven't modified the positions. We were still in the flux, but there will be those savings reflected. Now, also on the side, when you look at administrative services in the budget, it looks, when I was reviewing the document over the weekend, it looks really high and elevated, but that all of the health care is in administrative services right now, and also all of the merit is in administrative services right now. So it looks like it's gone way up, but it's because we haven't distributed that out.
Just a recommendation, you always do a nice job each year of showing all the things that we have to fund that are new. It'd be helpful if you actually showed some negative ones on that list, things where costs have gone down or you expect decreases, as opposed to just lumping it in with other groups, so that we can see when we made a decision to buy something and it's supposed to result in lower operating costs, we see those lower operating costs.
Okay, and I respect that. We traditionally, when we bring the final budget or bring it for discussion, we'll have those pluses and minuses. We'll be sure that we have that for the September
Are there any
meeting.
other savings that we'll see in the minus group?
I don't want to just speak off because I don't know just off the top of my head, so.
I know council took a cut in pay. That was a savings.
You can cut or pay again.
Councilmember Enox?
Roger, I noticed on page 10, a nice way, instead of saying our staff's getting old, that we're approaching retirement. A lot of folks are approaching retirement. I'd like to get that as an agenda item for one of our workshops to talk through that, see what that's looking like, and so we don't get caught by surprise on anything. And then Cindy, I didn't see it anywhere in here. Can you guide me to the page where it talks about the 90-day rainy fund and where we're going to end up? And whether it be how much we'll have above the 90-day fund?
It's in the general fund schedule, but we just updated where we anticipate being right now at the end of this year would be, was it 1.5 in the general fund and 2.49 something in the water and sewer fund. But then we actually believe there's going to be more going into that. One of it is like salaries and wages and administrative services. But at the end of next year, it's on the general fund schedule. And what page is that? On page 54 shows where we expect the general fund to be at the end of next fiscal year.
Did you take into account the two people that you were short as well?
It will be, if we don't have that included in that 1.5 that I gave you, so that's why we expect that's going to be more.
Okay.
Departments have done very well on conservation and looking at their budget, and like we always have that agreement that you just don't go out there and spend at the end of the year, but we have citywide had some vacancies and some other things that we've been able to save some money on.
Any other questions? Councilmember Hill?
On your, 1.3, over the reserve, did that include the money set aside for Mud Gully?
We still have Mud Gully of $1 million in there that we're,
You should be spending that this year.
okay, that'll be good.
So it's 1.3 unallocated?
1.5 is where we are without
Mud Gully.
what's available for capital projects.
Okay, so Mud Gully is not in that one?
Right, we've
Okay.
included that.
Good deal. Yeah, my shovel's rusted. Any other questions? Thank you, Cindy and Katina.
welcome.
B, Friendswood Volunteer Fire Department Services Funding. Mo?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. With me this evening, I have Rick McPhee, our VFD President, and Greg Otto, our VFD Vice President, and Stan, our Fire Chief, in the audience to help out with the discussion tonight, as well as Cindy and Terry Bird. You may recall at our retreat a few months ago, we had a lengthy conversation regarding the state of our volunteer fire department and our ability to provide services, as well as revenue streams related to our donation fund. This evening, we would like an opportunity to just have more of an in-depth conversation with y'all to discuss where it's been, where we see it going, and then get some direction from y'all after the end of this workshop. From tonight's objective, we want council to make an informed decision based upon our current funding model, our historic and long-term trends, future funding options, and then questions for y'all to consider are spend management responsibilities between the city and the VFD, who's responsible for what, and then also to discuss various alternatives for funding streams necessary to provide this critical service. As a matter of background, the FVFD, the Friendswood Volunteer Fire Department, is a predominantly volunteer service provided by citizens here in Friendswood. It is supplemented with some paid staff regarding the day crew that operates out of Station 1 next to City Hall, some part-time paid EMS shifts, and some paid supervisors. This has been in place since the 1950s by contract. The last one we executed was in 2004. The VFD contracts with the City of Friendswood to provide fire and EMS services to Friendswood. Just a heads up, the agreement's going to expire in 2019. So in about 2018, 2017, we're going to start some extensive conversations about the renewal to that contract and what items need to be included in that and so on and so forth. The current funding stream for this service comes from twofold. Our operating budget of roughly $1.5 million and through donations on the utility bills. This is the voluntary donation of $3 a month. Included within that $1.5 million operating fund out of our budget is a stipend of roughly $10 per call that equates to roughly $30,000 a year. If you were to equate this to a tax rate on the property tax, and keep in mind our general operating budget is funded by a number of sources, not just property tax, but if you were to equate this to solely property tax, it's 5.7 cents on our tax rate. The capital equipment and apparatus component of the VFD and EMS services is funded through that voluntary donation that I mentioned earlier, our utility bills, the $3 a month. This funds the 15-year capital plan that operates, that covers your leases for, your capital leases for your fire engines, your ambulances, your apparatus, the major equipment and stuff that's utilized daily by the department. As part of our contract with the FVFD, we provide facilities, such as the fire stations throughout town. The city owns the station, the volunteer fire department operates the facilities. We provide large maintenance and repairs in excess of $5,000 out of that $1.5 million budget. Now, I will mention there are, sorry, not out of that $1.5 million. I will mention there are occasions in which the FVFD takes care of maintenance items above and beyond $5,000, so they have stepped up to the plate. Namely, this past year with Fire Station 2, it's got a significant facelift. If you haven't been by it, I would recommend you do so. The city also provides the radio equipment by contract for operations for the volunteer fire department and EMS services. Separate from the 1.5 in the operating budget and the roughly 222, last year was about 280,000 from donations, the FVFD secures grants and goes out for grants themselves related to training. In FY15 is roughly $20,000, and then also that year they got private donations of roughly $45,000. These are, yes, sir.
The 222,000, you thought I heard you briefly mention it was 280 last year.
And I will go into further detail about that. That was the change in the water bill software. The Fire and EMS Fund, this is the utility bill donations that you have on your, every citizen in Friendswood gets on their water bill. Historically, the city would collect roughly 60% of the bills that went out. We have 12,500 roughly bills that go out. 7,500 of those voluntarily donated $3 or $6 every 60 days. The annual income for that donation was roughly $270,000 to $280,000, and this was utilized to fund the 15-year capital plan. Prior to October of 2015, the 15-year plan was underfunded. It was not a sustainable model. Even with the donations, we were bringing in less than what it was costing to provide the capital equipment, the fire engines, the ambulances, the various equipment utilized by the department. This is due to, namely, equipment getting more expensive to purchase. This is due to, we hadn't raised the donation fee in a number of years. I believe the fee was set in 1993 and hadn't gone up since then. And then also, this is just due to trends. I mean, it's harder and harder sometimes to get folks to donate. In roughly December of 2015, we saw a drastic drop in our donations attributed to the change in the customer interface on their utility bills for the donation, as well as the online ability to make donations. We have done a number of measures to try to correct that, and there's one additional piece that's coming down the pike that's set for beta testing in October. We've recovered roughly 70 or 80% of where we were, so we're going to get to about 222,000. It's still not where we need to be, and even if it were 270, 280, we were still not where we need to be. So we do need a long-term solution. Donations through grants are reducing as more competitions exist out there, whereas the VFD was competing against smaller pool of applicants for various state and national grants that are out there. The pool of those submitting for those grants have gotten quite a bit larger, so greater competition. We're seeing pressure on our EMS side, in which we're getting a lot of first and second calls. We have 2 ambulances that serve this area, but we're getting simultaneous calls, so our ability to address third calls are very limited, so we're having to call in for mutual aid. We're projecting towards, because of this, we're projecting towards 2 full-time EMS crews, mostly paid in 3 to 5 years. You've seen this in the last 2 fiscal year budgets, plus the one that was proposed tonight, in which we've added paid personnel to the EMS budget. Additional operational cost, we have forces that work just like you have in any other department. You have those for the volunteer fire department as well. You'll see a number of decision packages each year go unfunded within the department. So those obligations don't necessarily go away. They just keep being put to the bottom of the list. Larger scale projects and improvements are under evaluation. Related to, for instance, the training field improvements behind Fire Station 2. That's been in our CIP plan for a number of years, but yet we haven't been able to get funding set aside for it, as well as an expansion of the bay at Fire Station 4. It was one of the projects that was evaluated as part of this recent bond program. We didn't have the funds to complete it. I understand you have a busy table in front of you, so I'm going to go through it real slow to explain the various nuances associated with it. The top line, the current 15-year capital plan, this is what was historically funded with the donations on your utility bill. This was the fire trucks, the ambulances, the self-contained breathing apparatus, stretchers, compressors, etc. You can see the annual average for that 15-year plan is $472,000, a little short of $473,000. Historically, we were collecting $280,000 on our utility bills, and that's when we were having 60% participation in the donation fund. Right now, we're about $222,000, so we're well below the $473,000. The radio refresh, this was a decision package in this year's budget, but over the next 15 years, that the annual average was about $25,000 impact. The columns on the far right, I'll explain once I go through the list on the left. The training field improvements, this is the improvements to the training fields behind Fire Station 2. Typically a CIP funded project, but it has not been funded, as well as the station expansion, the third bay at Fire Station 4. The facility improvements are separate and apart from the projects that are going on right now, the expansion of Station 4, as well as Fire Station 1 behind the public safety building. These are the Stations 2 that eventually will need to be rehabbed or rebuilt, and Station 3 would eventually need to be rehabbed. The operational costs are what's funded currently in our operating budget on the general fund side of the ledger. And then the incremental operational cost at the very bottom line is if we were to go to a paid staff above and beyond what we're currently operating. What this table provides you on the far right-hand side is what the obligation would be if it were to be funded either on the utility bill, either by tenant or by utility bill, on a monthly basis, and or by the tax rate, what it would equate to the actually tax your property tax rate. The tenant and utility bills, we have roughly 12,500 utility bills that go out every 2 months throughout citywide. Some utility bills, for instance, if you have a shopping center that's got multiple tenants or a multifamily complex that has multiple tenants, they only get one bill and one opportunity to make the donation, despite however many units they may have within that department, within that complex. So an apartment complex with 100 units or tenants will have one $3 donation. Or a shopping center with 10 lease spaces will have one donation of $3. So if you were to bill based on the actual tenants, you can collect potentially, for instance, the current 15-year capital plan Instead of $3 for all 100 units, the $2.26 per unit, and vice versa. That's what your single-family residential property would potentially pay on their utility bill. If you were to put that all on the tax rate side, it would be roughly a little less than 2 cents at 1.78 cents. This is the call volume we've experienced in the last two prior fiscal years, FY 14 and FY 15. Roughly 3,000 calls annually, with single family representing the biggest lion's share there at 51% both years. You'll notice, though, special needs facilities and multi-family residences pick up quite a big percentage despite the actual land use breakdown of the city. When you think of Friendswood, we're probably 88-90% single-family residential, with commercial and multifamily and special needs facilities making. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Y'all are welcome in. The city is made up about 88-90% residential, single-family residential. The remaining 12 to 10% is the other non-residential development, non-single-family residential. But you'll notice about 20% or more, 25% or more, so in FY 15, 30%, go toward responses to multifamily and special needs facilities. The reason this is of some interest is if you go back to the previous slide and are based on tenant monthly opportunities, we bill one water bill may have 100 units, but they only do one $3 donation. Before I go on, do y'all have any questions on the call volume slide?
Actually, your recommendation of changing the price still doesn't change the fact that it's non-mandatory.
And we'll discuss the various options there. Honestly, staff doesn't have any one particular remedy that we're going to recommend. It's going to be an a la carte approach, and we want some direction from y'all this evening as to what are non-starters for council, what are items that you would not like to see, and then what are things that you would like additional research on. Yes, sir.
And maybe somebody has I see about a 50%, I'm sorry. All right. I see about a 50% jump in calls to multifamily residents in 2015, whereas single family seemed to, well, actually remain amazingly flat. I think there was a difference of 2 out of 1,330 or whatever. Any idea what's causing that? We haven't added any new multifamily facilities. And maybe it's just speculation, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that we can pinpoint an exact cause. All we can tell you is that the call volume has dramatically increased. If you look at the number of calls per front door, or tenant in this case, we're at about 11 calls per single-family residence across the city. When we look at our multifamily residents, they're at about the same also. But when you look at our special needs facilities, the nursing homes, and some of the retirement centers, we're significantly higher on a per resident.
Well, yeah, but it looks like, that number stayed pretty flat. I'm just wondering, in a one-year trend, just to jump that much.
And we pulled 2 years worth of data. We can continue, we can go further back in history to see if there are any significant trends on the call volumes. We are seeing citywide the call volumes are going up, and it is impacting, especially on the EMS side, our ability to respond. Some of you may have been, I know for certain, some of you have been contacted with regard to a citizen being picked up by a mutual aid ambulance from outside the city and were charged an EMS bill, whereas somebody else from the city was not. So with the call volumes going up without a solution to provide greater access to Friendswood EMS, we're going to have that issue. I had mentioned the a la carte approach. This slide depicts the various options that potentially exist out there for funding some of this stuff. We can continue with the lion's share being funded out of the general operating budget, which this last fiscal year was $1.5 million. This is a tax deductible expense because it's coming out of your property taxes. It's fairly fixed from a variability standpoint, and its complexity is minimal to none. The potential problems with this is that there's a larger impact on higher assessed value property. So if you have a bigger home, you're paying more property taxes for the service, same service that everybody else is getting. You can increase the donation amount of a variety of different amounts. It's been $3 for well over 20 years now. However, the potential impact to this is participation rates may drop. Just in nature, you raise it too high, people may be less likely to donate. I will state that starting this October, when the new software interface goes into effect, the customers will have the ability to make a variable donation amount of a certain amount. They can do $3, $5, or something else beyond just the $3 that they were historically allowed. We can pursue EMS billing. Historically, Friendswood is not charged for ambulance service here in Friendswood. The amount collected will vary, and not the municipality that charges for ambulance billing collects 100%, but it will be some revenue stream above and beyond what we currently receive. We can establish a citywide fee for various components of this service. Of course, we'll have to do some additional research regarding how best to implement that, but that is one option. And similar to that, we can establish potentially a pass-through fee, sort of like garbage service or some other service in the city. We have a contract with the volunteer fire department to provide fire and EMS service. Somehow come up with a pass-through fee that can be applied to water bills to provide that service completely outside the general operating budget as a potential option. If you go back to this slide, that utility bill option is the pass-through fee for any one of those components on the left-hand side. So if you were to do a complete drive-out cost of all those columns provided on all those rows on the left, it'd be roughly $18.13 a month on a utility bill, or $15.64 a month if you were to apply based on tenant.
But in that case, we could reduce our operating budget.
Correct, but we still need.
And our property taxes.
Correct. Now, there's still a bunch of hurdles that we'll need to clear in order to achieve that, but part of tonight's discussion is to get from council some insight.
Let me just be sure, if you said, hey, let's just add $18 a month to everybody's utility bill, then the 1.5 million, almost 2.5 million that's currently in our operating budget wouldn't have to be in the operating budget.
Currently in our operating budget is 1.5. This is what the department has stated that their anticipated operational costs are going to be over the next 15 years. But yes, 1.5. If we were to do that, though, we are going to start getting inundated with phone calls downstairs of people that says, what is this $18 fee on my water bill?
I certainly wasn't advocating. I was just asking a question.
Yes. Yeah. I just wanted, for Cindy and Katina's benefit, I wanted to mention that before they came.
Well, I would point out, you're gonna pay it some way or somehow. If you pay it as a fee and water bill, you're right, you'll get the calls. On the other hand, if you do pay it through property tax, you at least have the ability to deduct a third of it. But it was my understanding, and I think we've talked about this before, there will be the option to make a variable payment.
Correct.
But might I suggest, instead of just putting a blank spot and putting it upon everybody to make a decision, maybe you have a box for $3, a box for $4, a box for $5, and a box for no thanks, or something to that effect. That I'm afraid if you just leave it blank, they might leave it blank also. Just force a decision.
Sure, and I believe that's the direction they're going. But yes.
Okay.
Does our software allow for that?
That's what the new software package is being written specifically for us will. Yes.
Software, they can make software do anything they want it to do. I guess that's another question too. The reduction in revenue, does people pay electronically, or they receive a bill at home and write a check and send it in, or what are the different options for paying the water bill if you don't? It's going to be kind of a two-part question.
customers do have several options for making water bill payments. They can pay by mail, where they mail in a
You
check.
get a old traditional bill?
Right,
Okay,
yes.
I do that.
Everybody actually gets a paper bill.
Okay.
Whether they go electronic or not.
So you have the ability to either go to the city website and
can make a
pay the
payment.
bill electronically that way, or you can write a
Yes.
check,
Right.
or you can do a bill pay or something.
Right.
Right, okay.
Through their bank.
And then, are there any other options?
No, that would be
Okay.
it.
All right,
Bank draft,
so-
they can actually pay by credit card as well. A
So-
credit card draft.
Are you seeing, and maybe the answer is both, but have you seen this drop on where people are making the payment electronically? Or are you seeing it are you seeing it when they write a check and send it in? Or do you see it
Well,
both,
actually,
or is it worse one or the other?
the customers that paid by check had that option always to either pay with or without the $6.
Right,
And
so
so it's been, those that pay generally are going to pay. We haven't seen like a dramatic
So,
drop
so
in
the
those.
ones paying by check, that's been a pretty flat line, and.
Correct.
So the problem's been with those that are going to the city website and paying online.
Because they have to opt in versus opting out.
Okay.
They have to make a conscious decision to make the donation.
Okay,
when they pay
so-
online.
The appearance of the bill hadn't changed enough to stop people that are writing checks from
Right.
donating. Okay, all right. But we've made some progress, I guess, and,
We're getting roughly 80% of our annual donations. So, I mean, we've seen a noticeable spike back up in the positive direction in donations. But it's not gonna cover 15-year.
well, that's a whole separate issue. You got two things that are going on here. One, you had the sudden dramatic drop in donations, and that had to do with, I guess, the presentation on the website where you go to pay the bill.
Presentation on the website and presentation on the bill itself.
Right.
The bill presentation changed considerably.
But I don't think the bill presentation is the problem, at least from what I'm hearing, because the people that are writing the checks are still paying, and you're not seeing a significant reduction from those people in making the contributions. It seems to be the ones that are paying on the website and what they see there that's causing the problem. Or is that not right?
We had roughly the same percentages of folks that paid by check continue to pay by check, and those that pay online continue to pay online.
I understand
But,
that.
It dropped across all payment types, not just.
And it dropped the same on both? Okay, so then the problem is probably the presentation on the bill itself.
Correct, and we corrected the presentation on the bill itself, and we saw
You got 80,
improvement in
all
that.
right, so you got
We got
most of
some-
it back.
We got a good chunk of it back. And the last component of it that's about to go into implementation on October 1st is the online interface. But it wasn't systemic to simply the online bill. It was systemic across all payment types.
Well, the online payment, really. You get, everybody's getting a bill, right?
Everyone's getting a
Okay.
bill, but as far as those that wrote checks, we saw a drop in those making donations because of how the presentation.
So if the drop was 40% from one, it was 40% from the other as
Yes,
well?
sir.
It was consistent? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, I misunderstood.
Yeah, and if I didn't mention before, we do thank folks that do make the donation and continue to
Yeah.
make the donation. Please donate often.
I just think to that point, we still need to understand that we're less than 50% in the overall donations that are coming in, and they're single-family residents, the majority that are paying that 50%. So we still have all of the special needs facilities, all of the apartment complexes, very, very few of them even donate the $3. So there's a pretty significant disparity in who is picking up the tab,
Yeah.
if you will, for the capital for the city.
Councilman Hill?
I don't want us to get into this complicated formulas or whatever it is, or how you pay, or when you pay, or what you pay. I would like us to look at a mandatory fee of, just a figure, y'all figure out how much it'll bring in, of $250 a month per single family, and $250 a month per unit in these apartments and special. I think that will make you solvent for a long ways down the road. And I mean, if we've been operating on $3 voluntary and collecting 60%, I just think if you would do the math on that, I think this fund would be solvent for a good way, at least till I'm off council, then y'all can raise that rate.
Well,
if I might add,
It's not very long of you.
the other item too. We're not billing for ambulance rides. I've got health insurance that'll pay for the ambulance ride. I'm sure that Blue Cross and Blue Shield is quite grateful that we're not charging, but to me, that's just, we're leaving a lot of money on the table that the people in Friendswood that are paying for that insurance are subsidizing everybody else who has where their insurance companies are paying for ambulance rides. I don't necessarily have a problem with starting to charge for those. I believe the number up there is what, $500,000 a year?
The estimate was about $500,000 to $750,000.
Yeah.
And it simply
That makes you solvent too.
Yes, sir.
What cities in the local area, Mo, charge for ambulance rides? You said that there was a third-party provider that did.
All of our neighbors charge for ambulance service.
So,
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
And the collection rate's about 1/3 of what's billed.
He said that
1/3 of what's billed.
Rick said about 1/3 of what's billed is collected.
You have to write off
Can-
insurance adjustments and other things, and then you have the uncollectible that go to self-pay.
Well, I understand a lot of it may not be collectible, but is that $500,000 to $750,000 to assume a 33% collection rate, or
It
is
could-
that assuming 100%?
It's assuming about 50% collection.
Okay, all right, so maybe it's $300,000 then on the low end, but still, it's, you're short. And I'm having to go back and remember 4 slides ago, but we're talking about being short about $200,000 or $300,000 a year.
Yeah,
right
but
now.
we also have to realize that in order to get that $300,000, you're gonna have to spend some money. Number one, you're gonna have to pay a billing agency to assist you in that collection and doing all of the required activity, not to mention the complexity of doing all the billing. We'll also state that we believe that the volunteer activity that we do have today in the EMS side will continue to diminish as you move towards a billed service. So it is a bit of a, unknown. Clearly, no question, Councilman, there's an opportunity there for that revenue, but there's a lot of activity and work that goes along with it.
Councilmember Rocky?
Yeah, I am not a big fan of us billing for the ambulance rides for that very reason. And to Jim Hill's point, it's complex. You don't get all the money, and I think it irritates people. And regardless of whether they got insurance or not, only a third of it's getting collected. I like Councilman Hill's idea, $250, and all the apartments and all the other places no longer get a free ride.
Is that easy to manage?
I mean, that's relatively easy to manage, presuming we can work out the legal nuances that we need to work out. What do we do as far as the mutual aid discrepancy of if resident A gets picked up by a mutual aid call and resident B gets picked up by Friendswood EMS, one pays bill and the other doesn't?
Can you keep like a marker system? In other words, if we transport one of theirs, then they owe us, I don't know if it's hard to keep that up or not.
We were just talking about keeping this thing simple and not complicated. Look, if you don't, even if you only get a third of these.
The marker system works very well.
Now, it's $300,000, and that's an ultra conservative estimate, and everybody's supposed to have the health insurance now due to recent federal mandates. I'm not advocating going out and busting kneecaps if somebody doesn't pay it, but if they've got insurance and all you've got to do is file an insurance claim, and even if we got to pay somebody 20% of the cost to collect it or to do the insurance filing, whatever it is, it's still it's an easy net gain.
I know I got $6,000 deductible, and then the insurance rider, that's what can come out of it. It's not the insurance company going to pay it. It's the people who are going to have to pay it out of their deductible, and that's why they're not going to pay it.
Right.
So to the issue that Rod brought up, we ran about 94 calls where mutual aid came in and transported patients because of our volume of activity. We didn't have an ambulance or a crew available. And on average, those would have been probably about $1,300 to $1,400 a piece. that those ambulance companies are billing. Specifically, it's Clear Lake Emergency Corps is probably our primary mutual aid responder, but we also have League City, Alvin, and Pearland. All of them respond. Reciprocally, we also go to their location.
Do we bill them?
And we do not bill them. So
Why don't we bill them?
yeah, I think that would be acceptable only if we were willing to pay their bill when they came to us.
We're already paying their bill.
No, we're not.
Our
Oh, we're
residents
not?
pay it.
No.
Our residents are paying.
Our residents are paying it.
Well,
Okay.
But-
Okay, now I get it.
wait a minute. Wait,
Rick, do you think it would
Yeah,
offset?
I can't support that. We're providing free ambulance service to somebody in League City. And when they reciprocate, provide that service to somebody in Friendswood, a Friendswood resident's having to pay for it.
That's correct. That's a current issue.
Well, all right. Either they stop charging our guys or we start charging
We've uncovered an
theirs.
issue.
Rick,
Is there a breakdown on, and maybe I missed it, but is there a breakdown on the number of paying customers versus non-paying customers? How many calls go to mutual aid versus us being able to handle them? Is it
sit,
94 out
I
of,
think it was last year.
out of,
Out of 94 came
3,000.
into Friendswood. I don't have the number of our units going into,
50 to 60 going out,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
We, majority of our responses are to Alvin, occasionally to League City and Pearland.
right? So it sounds like to me there's, a couple of ways to resolve it. Either you tax everybody for free ambulance rides, or you charge the people who get an ambulance ride. And then the ones that get it are responsible for paying for the care, or you tax everybody else. And I'm not advocating one or the other, but that sounds like the two things that are on the table right now. Without severely complicating things with,
I'd like to keep it simple.
Well, both of those are very simple solutions,
Rick, would it be hard
right?
for you to bill these other cities or whoever when we transport and let them bill us when they transport under mutual aid and just keep the money in a special fund and see how it works out at the end of the year?
I
Do you
don't-
think
I don't
we
think
give-
that would be hard. We know address and we know agency. It would be different than what's done throughout the industry today, in that all of those companies or departments are billing insurance companies. So they're billing the individuals and their insurance company. They're not billing other cities, back and forth.
And we're
That
not.
doesn't mean it couldn't. If we wanted to maintain our, free ambulance service, we could agree with our mutual aid partners that we want them to bill us rather than the companies.
That's definitely an option.
So, that's out there.
All righty, we good?
Thank you, guys.
Well, hold on.
Thank you for everything you do.
Yes.
Did we determine there was anything to be knocked off the list, I guess is one.
They wanted to
question.
triple the tax rate is what I heard. but
Okay,
no.
that's- just checking.
No, I
Came
think,
from that end of the desk.
no, I think the
The
predominant,
left side.
council directed us to look at a mandatory fee across utility bills at the tenant level, and also look at mutual aid EMS billing to see,
Yes.
and
I'd like to see what
you want more
of
EMS billing as well?
charging for that.
Well, nothing, we're not going to present to you an ordinance or anything at the next meeting. We just wanted direction this evening. We've been meeting extensively in the evenings, at least once or twice a month for the last several months with the VFD. We'll continue that till we have something more palatable for
Will
council.
that work for you guys?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
we appreciate the openness and the cooperation that we've got from the city during the last several months as we put this together.
Excellent.
And real quickly, when you get back to us, I'd like a breakdown of the cost required to, if we go to charging for ambulance rides. You had mentioned that there's a cost associated with that. If we can try to pin that down, that would be beneficial for me anyway.
And Mo, I know we've said this before, but to me, this is systemic of a bigger problem, that our current model is starting to crumble around us. And I think, as we get near 2019 for the negotiating of the new contract, it's time for us to sit down and, think about what does build out look like for the city and what is the right model to provide EMS and fire department service, especially when you see the exponential growth in EMS calls since 2003. That's not slowing down.
Yeah, and you're seeing that in the budget. I mean, we have moved to a more of a paid staff on the
Right.
EMS side, and it's going to continue to trend in that direction.
That's included in the models.
Yeah.
That's included.
That's included in the models that are provided to y'all.
Just get more.
Thank you, Mo.
Thank you, guys.
Patrick, capital projects update? What do we got, 10 slides?
A little bit more than that. I'll try and go fast.
Okay.
The first project this evening, gentlemen, is our library project. Coming up with the library project, we anticipate having a substantial completion date. We have a meeting set for Monday. As you see some of the pictures in here, you'll see that they are well on the way to that. This is after you've walked in, you've turned around and looked at the front doors. The walls are painted, everything's fully operational. If you were to go into the children's area, the attendant right there, Miss Christina, sometimes she's there. Today she's greeting everybody and helping a customer. You can see the areas very well lit. All the windows are in and fully operational. Of the areas that are not at that point, but anticipate should be there by Monday. This is the cafe area. They do have the carpet down. They're putting the linoleum down for this area. All of the windows are in. All of the ceiling is in. All the walls are painted. This is the area to the left, closer to the meeting room areas. All the windows are in. They are finishing up portions of the ceiling and the fire suppression system. As far as there's a couple other rooms that they are working on, but there are no exposed areas other than potentially the ceiling where they're working on this fire suppression system. This is on the outside. They are working on the brick pavers. They have the facade on the outside is all up. All of the windows are up. You can even see the archways. Briefly, if you kind of look right there, those are up. They are waiting on the copper roof to get put on once all of the brick pavers are put in. One of the things that they are waiting on, this area right here would be an area that has the engraved bricks where many people have purchased to have their names on or their children's names on. We're waiting to get those in before they can put those down. There is dirt work, as you can see, that needs to be done. There are no more dirt piles. There is some landscaping that needs to go in, but for the most part, they are working very quickly to get everything.
Wasn't today the completion date? Yesterday?
It was, yes,
So
sir.
what happens now?
What happens now?
It's not done.
You are correct.
Do we get some money back?
Potentially so, yes.
Daily penalty.
There is liquidated damages within the contract, and we have enforced that on some contractors. Usually, at least in my tenure, I can't speak for what happened before. The two projects that I can think of, the Water Plant 2, Water Plant 7, that y'all have heard way too much about during my times doing these presentations, we have assessed some liquidated damages.
Patrick, I think the first focus is getting it done, and then we'll sit down with the contractor and sort that out. Is that not a
Yes, sir.
reasonable route?
Yeah. The pavers, how many of those are there, by the way? Those were sold, I think, like $100 a piece or something like
I
that.
believe so. Miss Mary is here. She probably have a better guesstimate than I would. 259 pavers were
259.
sold.
Well, good.
Which equates out to $25,900.
Yeah.
And they're on sale now at $100 a piece.
Still,
only a
can
few
still
left.
be had, yeah, closeout sale. That's why we're not done yet, we're waiting on it. All right. Do you have any idea when you might expect those to arrive?
They are supposed to already be here. We should get them this week.
Okay,
if you'd asked me last week, I'd have told you that exact same answer.
Okay.
Fair enough.
But the library's going to have an indoor, air-conditioned, beautiful view of the parades in the future from those front rooms.
How much are we charging for those seats?
I'm thinking revenue source, right there.
There you go.
Mary will know how to get in.
All right. Next project is our fire stations. Information right there. Fire station has been going for a couple months now. This picture was taken about a week or so ago. One of the point I would note is the foundation piers have been poured and they're curing at this point. A lot of the infrastructure is in and they're continuing to progress. The first month we showed you the video, the time-lapse video, due to operator error. The first month or the second month, rain got into it. Second month, operator error. So you should be seeing a video next month. Third one, Lake Friendswood. Lake Friendswood, we issued the notice to proceed. Contractor is out there starting to peel back some of the dirt to start laying out the concrete sidewalks. Downtown street pavers. You'll see that later this evening on the consent agenda as we for acceptance. Yes, sir.
So we got them all in, and now they've painted utility marks all up and down them, right?
I'll get to that in two
Okay.
slides.
All right.
So this is the nice view taken earlier. This is from the driveway that previous to last month. This was put in this past month. This is a view of the pavers before the markings. So yes, we have utility markings out there. James's staff actually went out there to try and pressure wash them off. What that does is also blow out the sand in between there. So therefore, just through time, you have to let that work its way out. You can use a flame? Okay.
But who did those marks?
My guess, based on how they are, that's AT&T.
Who?
AT&T. It's line locators that do that, but there is an AT&T cable that data cable that runs right through that area. So when we did the one call for the electrical lines for the light poles that we're going to have, in fact, there's one going to be pretty close to right in here. We'll have a pad for a bench and a light pole behind it. When the contractor did the one call for the light poles, hence all utilities come out there and they mark the utilities. This is also located, this isn't necessarily straight on the downtown street pavers. The pavers are right here, but I wanted to point out the nice new sign that James was able to get done. Last month it was in, but didn't necessarily have the writings or the logos on it. And this is at the end of there at Shadwell. Next project is our street bond project. West Shadow Bend is complete. They are now working on Towns Road. This is West Shadow Bend. This is Towns Road, where they poured a section of it and are continuing to work on driveways. And then we'll be flipping over and demoing the other side and working on that as well. Whispering Pines, Friendswood Link Road. This contract is, they're finalizing everything. In fact, all of the paved areas are completely paved. Majority of the driveways are in. I think there's one or two driveways that they're working on. And they do have all of the paving going up to the bridge. There was a section that I talked about would be a challenge. They've already done that. If you can see, I didn't take a close-up picture, but they do have the curb up as you go across the bridge with the markers on top. They still have to paint the curb as you go across the bridge. Water plants 2 and 7. Water plant 2 is continuing to move on. They've been working on the control building this month. Water plant 7 is on the agenda for later tonight. I would ask the city manager to pull from the agenda and not accept this evening. The generator that you see in the back We had a generator test that was not witnessed, and we pressed upon the contractor that we have to have a witnessed generator test. They came out today and were performing that, and we had a couple different warning lights that came on the generator, so therefore, generator company needs to continue to work on getting that correct. And potentially, we see you in September. Lift station number 3 is continuing to work. They're working in between the alleyway, installing the gravity line. Lift station 18 is primarily done. They were working on startup procedures today, and we'll continue to work on that, and hopefully we're at acceptance on next month. That's where I'm at for the capital projects update.
Very nice.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Item 6, special recognition and acknowledgements, presentation of 13th consecutive Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, and the first outstanding as an operations guide special performance measures. Let's go down to the city manager's report.
Suspend the rules.
Can we suspend the rules, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Nice haircut. So,
While we're,
senior citizens here? In the report?
It looks like they're here.
Yes. James says that they are.
Are they here? Let's go ahead and have them give their report. Nancy, how you doing tonight? Wonderful. Thank you. You went outside.
Kevin?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, City Manager, City Attorney, and City Secretary. I am Nancy Mastro-Francesco, Chairman of the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee. And yes, I know you're all wondering, Mastro-Francesco is one word, it's Italian, and it's pronounced just like it's spelled. That's my 3 most common questions. I'm here to report on activities at the Senior Center, the Friendswood Senior Center. A lot of effort is put into providing activities to benefit the needs and interests of our diverse and active senior citizens. The average daily attendance at the center is 135. Our bus provides transportation to and from the building for those who need it, and daily lunches are available through Galveston County. A bi-monthly newsletter is distributed by email, and printed copies are available by request at the center. Educational activities include Bible study, Baha'i study, guitar lessons, and classes for crochet, painting, and Spanish. Guest speakers discuss topics of special interest to seniors, including health, nutrition, safety, and finance. Our 3 weekly exercise classes are very popular, as are the Zumba, Gold, the yoga, chair yoga, Tai Chi, mall walking, clogging, tap dancing, and line dancing classes. The fitness room is also used regularly. Games help to keep our minds sharp. We have bridge, bunco, dominoes, card games, mahjong, puzzles, Wii bowling tournaments, a pool table, and the ever-popular bingo. In fact, we have recently added a second monthly bingo game, plus chair volleyball and a monthly movie matinee. Bus trips are offered about 4 times per month. These include shopping and out to lunch or breakfast trips, which are especially popular for those who don't drive. We have gone to museums, the zoo, Dollar Cinema, the Opry, plays, Astro games, and a second trip to Coshada has been added this year. We enjoy traveling, and our 7-day Western Caribbean cruise aboard the Caribbean Princess in early March was a big success with more than 40 people participating. It was led by Jeannie Balderas, and she has already planned our 4th cruise for March 26th through April 2nd of 2017. It will be a 7-day cruise on the Carnival Breeze to Key West, Florida, as well as Freeport and Nassau in the Bahamas. But our most popular activities are the socials. Annual events include Go Texan Luncheon, a tea party, spaghetti fundraiser, spring and fall picnics, Senior Fish Day, National Hot Dog Day, barbecue fundraiser, casino extravaganza, which is coming up this month, grandparent social, a watermelon bash and bingo, and this year we added a 50s sock hop with an Elvis impersonator. He was very impressive in his gold lame jacket. Holiday events include Veterans Luncheon, Thanksgiving Potluck, Christmas Luncheon, Valentine's Day Social, and a Cinco de Mayo celebration. We celebrate birthdays monthly, as well as desserts. We actually celebrate everything, such as cookies, banana splits, sundaes, pies, and brownies. We have Christmas in September for craft lovers and an annual health fair. We are very proud and appreciative of the support provided by many local businesses who sponsor or contribute to the success of our activities, especially all those socials. That support is due to the efforts of the outstanding staff of the Senior Citizens Program. Jeannie Balderas, there she is, the Senior Program Manager, Jamie Eubanks, the Assistant Senior Program Manager, and Sel Lopez, our aide. As a member of the Building Expansion Committee that reported to you in June, I toured 7 other local senior centers. We learned that our center is one of the most active in spite of our cramped facilities. Under the able leadership of Michael Boyette, the staff works hard to find new activities to support the interests and needs of our members. We're looking forward to another great year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Chief?
Have to apologize for stepping out. I wasn't sure that we weren't going to do this at 7 o'clock. Roger has asked me to update you on the Smither case and matters relating to William Reese. And there's been a lot of activity in the paper this last week, and I think it probably would be good for you to hear where we're at now, where we're headed, and how long it's going to possibly take. So with that in mind, I have to take you back 24 months ago to when we began a cold case review of the Smither homicide. And in that process, we went through everything that we had in the way of documentary evidence, physical evidence, and testimonial evidence. So just covers the full realm of what we looked at. What we were able to do about this time in 2014, August of 2014, was to make contact with the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation to make sure that William Reese was on their suspect list for the kidnapping and murder of Tiffany Johnson, who was kidnapped and murdered on July 26th, 1997. So we're going back about 19 years. So when we did make contact, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation told us that yes, he was very high on their suspect list, and they had DNA. So this isn't anything that is secret information or confidential information. It's been out there in the press, but they did have DNA, and that in addition to that, they were being urged by their district attorney up in Oklahoma County to come up with some additional information that would place William Reese up there in the Oklahoma area at the time of the murder. We had that information in our evidence room. And so when William Reese was arrested in October of 1997 for the kidnapping of Sandra Sapah, his vehicle was inventoried. And his vehicle was a treasure trove of documents. And so there were receipts in there were cell phone bills, there was just a whole host of documentary evidence that we used to put together a timeline. So this is how we were able to put together the different homicides that he might have been involved in. So with that in mind, we provided those phone records, and in September of 2015, William Reese was charged in Oklahoma County for the kidnapping and the murder of Tiffany Johnson. And so I think we all know what happened after September of 2015. We, meaning the Friendswood Police Department and some of the local investigators, knew that we were working on a reduced timeline as far as interviewing Reese before he left the state of Texas. And so we made a determination right after the first of the year, January 2016, that we were going to conduct the interview, and we solicited the assistance of the Texas Rangers, and they agreed to help us out. So that interview with William Reese took place in early February of 2016, and he didn't agree initially to cooperate. However, he contacted us a week later, so just about the beginning of the second week of February of 2016, and agreed to cooperate. And in his interview with the ranger, he admitted to his complicity, to his involvement in the Jessica Kane disappearance and the disappearance of Kelly Cox, who was taken in the middle of July of 1997. So where that brings us to is the body recovery, the remains recovery that occurred throughout the rest of the month of February, all of March, and stopped just about short of the middle of April. And as you know, we were successful in recovering Jessica Kane's body, or Jessica Kane's remains, from the Orem site in South Houston, and we were successful in recovering Kelly Cox's remains. Again, Kelly's from Denton, and we recovered her remains from the area around 288. Since that recovery phase has been completed, our investigative phase has continued. And the district attorney, after speaking to the district attorney in Oklahoma County in the middle of June, decided that our investigation had progressed to a point where William Reese was no longer required here in the state of Texas for us to complete what we needed to do as far as presenting a case to the grand jury. So with that in mind, we were contacted the end of June by the Oklahoma County Sheriff's Department as far as being able to come down and pick up William Reese. We did have to remind them that we understood why they wanted Reese, but there was a small problem, and that's called extradition due process. So throughout the month of July, we went back and forth with Oklahoma, making sure that their paperwork was complete and that we had the approval of the Texas Department of Corrections to release William Reese from the Friendswood City Jail. We made no real secret, although we didn't advertise it, that Reese was in our jail for 5.5 months. But he was there for a reason. It facilitated the body recovery, and it facilitated what we needed to do from an investigative standpoint to get done what we needed to get done. Just here on the 25th of July, the paperwork was complete. Actually, it was completed late the week before, and we made arrangements with the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations to bring William Reese halfway to Oklahoma and turn him over to the Oklahoma state authorities so that he could be transported the rest of the way up to Oklahoma. So knowing full well that Kelly Cox was from Denton and knowing full well that she was taken probably about 100 yards from the front door of the Denton PD, we decided that an appropriate place for William Reese to be turned over to the Oklahoma authorities was right there at the Denton PD. So we carried him up there, we turned him over, and on the 26th, he was magistrated. And in that particular hearing, he pled not guilty, and he went ahead and was no bonded. They weren't going to let him out of jail anyways, but they still had to go through the formality of magistrating him. On the 28th, William Reese again had a hearing. And based on the context of his extradition, he had the right to a speedy trial up in Oklahoma, which meant that he had to be tried within 120 days. And he waived in that hearing on the 28th his right to a speedy trial. So that means that William Reese could be in the custody of Oklahoma for an extended period of time, and they are going to get done what they need to get done up there before he'll stand any trial or appear in a court down here in Texas. With that said, the district attorney also, at the beginning of last week, said that he was looking at a 3-week time frame as far as presenting our case, the Smither case, the Kane case, to a grand jury here in Texas. And we met with the district attorney last Friday morning, early Friday afternoon, and I believe that he is on a timeline to present cases sometime the middle of this month to a grand jury here in Galveston County. So that's really where we're at as far as William Reese goes. And you know, as I mentioned to you before, when we were done with the recovery phase, that this is no, you know, this is no victory lap. We're a long way from being done. So I thought I'd go ahead and read you an email real quick. It's brief, but it came from Jan Bynum. And Jan Bynum is Kelly Cox's mother. And Kelly was 20 years old, and she had a 19-month-older by the name of Alexis, who actually accompanied Jan Bynum down here the first week of June to visit the site out on off of 288 where Kelly's remains were recovered. This email was written to Captain Josh Rogers, but you could change the salutation and put in the city manager's name, the mayor's name, or really, you know, the whole community in the salutation. And it goes, and I'll paraphrase, but it says, "Dear Josh, I have not emailed in a while, but that does not mean I have not thought about you and the entire team. In fact, I had 4 of the pictures from our visit in June made into 12 by 12 canvases and have them in the hall heading to where Kelly's room was located. I show everyone the lovely memorial site and the arrangement of flowers sent by the Friendswood Police Officers Association. In other words, I talk about you and your kindness to our friends and family when they come over. I still have something that I will be sending after Kelly's life celebration, which they've scheduled for August 20th. And I plan to ship a box to you, and it will have individual items for each of the team. Included will be a flash drive for each of you with all the pictures from our visit, along with a couple of pictures of Kelly. You have no idea what our visit meant to me and to Alexis. It touched us in such a positive way in the midst of all this sadness, and it reminded us that the world does have lots of good people. I've attached a copy of the information on Kelly's life celebration, not that I expect you or any of the group to come, but I will be including you all by showing pictures and by sharing the impact of our visit to Brazoria County and meeting all of you. So I wanted you all to know about the event, and hopefully you will feel the love from us to all of you from here in Farmers Branch. And that's signed Jan Bynum. So we still have a long way to go. I think this best articulates where we're at right now and what these families are going through. And, we've met with the Smithers, and I know the Galveston County DA's office has met with the Canes. But this has still got a long time to play out before it's over.
Chief, thank you very much. Yeah. We ready for the presentation?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name's Mike Rogers. I'm the Director of Finance for the City of Webster, Texas, and I'm also immediate past president of the Government Finance Officers Association of Texas. The Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada is pleased to announce the City of Friendswood has received the GFOA's Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for its fiscal year 2015-2016 annual budget. The award represents a significant achievement by the entity. It reflects the commitment of the governing body and staff to meet the highest principles of governmental budgeting. In order to receive the budget award, the entity had to satisfy nationally recognized guidelines for effective budget presentation. These guidelines are designed to assess how well an entity and their budget serves as a policy document, a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communications device. This is actually the 13th year the City of Friendswood has received this award. But what makes this particular year memorable is, in addition to the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, your submission was judged as an outstanding operations guide by all three reviewers, earning the city a special recognition award for performance measures. It is my understanding that you've been trying to get this special recognition for almost a decade now, and it's quite an accomplishment. I'd like to congratulate the City of Friendswood, as well as the efforts of Cindy Edge, Director of Administrative Services, Katina Hampton, Deputy Director of Administration Services, and Jennifer Walker, Budget Manager, for receiving this award. Congratulations.
I do want to add a little piece of something. Jennifer wanted to let the budget team know that everyone that works on getting those benchmarks, that's their work. We pull it all together, but they keep up with it, and she just wants to make sure that all of y'all out there know that that's really appreciated.
We're going to do the finance meeting. We'll do the finance meeting real quick. Yeah, just read. That's it. Thank you very much. Right now, I'd like to recess the city council meeting and convene a meeting of the City of Friendswood Employee Benefit Trust per the posted agenda. Notice here is hereby given of a special meeting of the City of Friendswood Employee Benefit Trust to be held Monday, August 1st, 2016, 7 p.m. at the City of Friendswood City Hall, 910 South Friendswood Drive, Friendswood, Texas. for the purpose. Oh, it is. I'm reading it. It says 7. Change that clock. Let's do the consent agenda, and I want to pull item C off.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda absent item C.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? We're going to adjourn right now. We're going to go with communication from the public. To comply with the provisions of the Open Meetings Act, the City Council may not deliberate on items discussed under this agenda item. The council may refer this item to the city manager or direct this item to be placed on the next regular council agenda. PowerPoint presentations are not conducted during the citizens' comment period. David Allen?
Mr. Mayor, I'm on the comments. So you have 3 minutes to speak. When you're 2 minutes into it, I'll hold the yellow one up. When you have 1 minute left, when your 3 minutes is up, I'll hold up the red card.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
David Allen, and I just want to say that I'm 61, and since I was 16, I've been attending town hall meetings or city council meetings that often had to do with housing developments. And this one by Mr. Park is the first time I've really seen a real effort towards the surrounding community, as well as, making his place come alive. So anyway, I'm from across town, so my opinion has really no effect, but I was impressed. Okay, did you notice who they released today? John Hinckley Jr., the guy that went after President Reagan. And of course, there's a guy that the president of China said we shouldn't have because he wants to undo the treaties that, send our jobs over there, and the Saudi Arabians said we shouldn't have because, he's against that stuff. And even Vicente Fox said we shouldn't have. But anyway, and even the Wall Street Journal said should be wiped out. But so who do they release? A guy that's done the job before, and he looks very healthy. Looks like he's used the weight room a lot, and he looks like he's ready to go to work, Pretty crazy. Either they're totally stupid or they intend something. Okay, now what I put on each of your desks is a Harris-Galveston County Subsidence District well application form, which I've applied and paid my $200 for. If it's a house that already has city water, they say right in there, do not tie into the city water, just like the ordinance that you guys passed last year said. And it says you can have 1/10, for example, if you use 100,000 gallons a year at your house, you can pull, without fees, besides the initial fee, you can pull up to 10,000 gallons, up to 1/10. The Harris-Galveston Subsidence District is a combination of Harris County and Galveston County, which are legitimate political subdivisions. The Houston-Galveston Area Council is a globalist thing, okay? They have federal funding to push the Agenda 21 type stuff, denial of resources. I think that's what happened with the ordinance that I think they maybe talked to planning about and then you passed, whatever. But my point is here, the attorney that the Harris-Galveston Subsidence District has hired there for our attorney, Mr. Palenko, is Greg Ellis. There's his phone number there. It's separate from the subsidence office, and he's away on vacation for the first half of this month, but perhaps later in the month. What I would like to see is that if Friendswood's ordinance looked like this, which does abide by the Texas Supreme Court decision, which is written on there, Edwards Aquifer Authority versus Day, and this does abide by that, whereas the current ordinance that we have does not abide by the Texas Supreme Court findings. So if you guys could look over it the next few months and perhaps maybe redo the ordinance into one that meets the Texas Constitution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Karen Ross. And then following her, Virginia Pitts.
Good evening. My name is Karen Ross, and I live at 301 Glen Eagles Drive. My husband and I moved to Friendswood 37 years ago when the Air Force assigned him to Johnson Space Center. When we moved to Sun Meadow, there were no other developments past Fox Meadow on 528. 3 fairways of a golf course wound near our home, and there was a beautiful section of custom homes and a small country club. New homes were being built in the Glen Eagles Old Course Loop. We routinely found a golf ball or two in our yard. Then the golf course closed, the clubhouse and tennis club were demolished, and the open areas that made Sun Meadow so appealing to new home buyers was rezoned for development. the nature of the community that we had moved to changed dramatically. But development did not come, and we adjusted. Now, Sun Meadow is a well-established, well-maintained, quiet community with mature trees and increasing property values. Development under the current zoning plan would change all that. The older community with green space would become a community with houses in every space large enough to fit a lot. Traffic from new streets would be added to existing traffic leading the neighborhood. A family buying a new home in the Horseshoe would look out their front yard to see their street, a narrow green space, and backyards of the existing older neighborhood. The last best hope to save and restore vestiges of the community that I and others moved to is the planned unit development currently before council. The PUD plan shows ingenuity and creativity for developing an aesthetically pleasing master planned community in the open lands between Sun Meadow, Windsor Estates, and Windsong. The PUD plan shows a respect for the green space in the Horseshoe that is so integral to the community Sun Meadow has been and can continue to be. I urge you to pass the Friendswood Trails Resolution and to steer the development of a master planned community that will be a credit to all of Friendswood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Virginia Pitts, and I have lived in Sun Meadow for 38 years, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I lived in 2 different houses on the once beautiful and active golf course. I have been there when it was owned by the late Mayor Lowe. Then it was sold to the homeowners, which a lot of people don't know about, and we bought shares into that, and at $300 a share, and then that wasn't enough money to keep it going, and so many people put more money into the shares, and alas, it didn't stay that way. So Mr. Henley bought the golf course, and he owned it for several years. Then he sold it to a corporation, and it was led by a man named Ray, Tiedge, and he spoke to City Council about the development, the prospective development. And this went back and forth with City Council, and it wasn't passed, thank goodness. So here we are in 2016. Let's see, it was sold in 1995 to the First Corporation Group, and it's 2016, and still nothing has been done. But alas, Mr. Park Patterson appears and works and works and works and does lots of research. Planning and zoning, ask him questions, he answers, and does what they ask. And after months, P&Z unanimously passes his plan on to City Council. Mr. Patterson has met with the homeowners, been up front with us, listened to us. Did you hear that, Councilman? Listened to us. We live out there. We live out there. I don't know if any of you do or not, but we do. He answered our questions and discussed with us our concerns and made some concessions. Even at the last workshop I attended, he added more 90-foot lots. Still, some of you cannot get past that good old boy philosophy. Councilman Scott, I heard you talk about density, and the 90-foot lots would make the subdivision less dense. I guess being a science teacher for 44 years, I learned the wrong definition of density. If you have 90-foot lots, yes, they won't be as close together, but there will be 150 additional homes with the current zoning and possibly 108 multi-family units on the same acreage with less green space. Density is a much-used term, and at its simplest, density is the number of units in a given area. The PUD has 424 homes and no multifamily units versus the 580 homes with 90-foot lots and a possibility of multi-family units. The PUD has a 1.6 number of units per acre, where the current city zoning is 2.6. So I look at you and think that, I'm done? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mo DeBellick, Jerry Flieger, and Jim Higgins.
Good evening, gentlemen. I have a little bit of accent, but I'm sure you're going to understand me. The previous two speakers took a little bit thunder, but I do agree with both of them. I'm in Friendswood for 37 years, and I bought the house because of the golf course. I paid more for it. I paid more taxes for it. My money went into the shares in ownership. And at once, the golf course was gone for whatever reason. None of you gentlemen, maybe previous guys sitting there instead of you, came back to us and said, well, you shouldn't really pay that much taxes. There is no more golf course. I didn't think much about it because I could afford it, I guess. But I had a time to think about this development and what is proposed, and I think is taken in consideration everything that we would like to see Sun Meadow to remain. The horseshoe, so-called horseshoe, I think will contribute immensely to the beauty of Sun Meadows. It will be a nice park. It will be not cluttered with another development. As Ms. Ross said, if they do anything there, there'll be a couple of houses looking in the back porches of each other. I think Mr. Patterson took excellent approach of moving the traffic, drainage, and the development as we would like to see in Sun Meadows. I think you are there because of us. I came to this country because I believe in majority rule and democracy. And if I were to ask everybody here, just put their hands up, who is for this development? I'm sure everybody would pretty much say so.
No, that's not true.
All right, if it is not true,
Let's keep the audience participation to zero.
but anyways, my opinion is that it is a good project, good development, and I would urge you to vote for it because I would say it's about time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Jerry Flieger. I live at 321 Glen Eagles. I followed Jerry and Karen in from the Mojave Desert. I wanted to spend a few minutes tonight talking about what brought me to Friendswood. It wasn't 90-foot lots. As a captain in the Air Force in those days, just buying a house in Friendswood was a push, and that was a captain with no debt and a working wife. It was affordable housing, and it was green space and good schools. And so the concept of let's force a 90-foot lot on every square inch of Friendswood doesn't appeal to me. What I would rather see, I mean, that's the ticky-tack I left in California, Southern California. What I would rather see is creative use of the land. And the old golf course, aside from being a challenge, offers an opportunity to creative use. But that means you're going to have to give a little on the lot size. And I think Mr. Patterson and his team have looked at that and have come up with a reasonable approach. I would be happier if the houses were cheaper because I don't believe they're still in the affordable range for our teachers and our young couples, but I think they're more affordable than the large McMansions that we see going up in so much of Friendswood. So I think we've kicked the can down the road long enough. Certainly, those of us that live around the golf course have put up with the weeds and the critters, occasionally the dirt bikes racing across it, and the kids running around it in the middle of the night. It's time to put some definition to the future of Sun Meadow and to approve this plan. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jim Higgins. I live at 245 St. Cloud Drive. My wife Laura and I have lived here for 23 years. I'll just be very brief. I want to say that Planning and Zoning unanimously approved this. Mr. Park we've met with Mr. Park on a number of occasions, or I'm sorry, Mr. Patterson on a number of occasions. Folks out here like myself who opposed previous plans support this, and we've been assured that, by Mr. Patterson, that the development will enhance Sun Meadow rather than diminish it like previous plans would have done. Now, as I said, I've lived here for 23 years. I voted, I paid my taxes, and pretty much went about my life and didn't really pay much attention. I had a lot of faith that the city and our elected officials will always do the right thing. I feel very strongly this is the right thing, not just for Sun Meadow, but for Friendswood. And I hope that the city council will stand with Friendswood, will stand with Sun Meadow, and let us know that this community does count for something. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Moniz, John Petering, and Slater Sawyer.
Good evening. My name is Mike Moniz. I live at 246 St. Cloud. I had the privilege of moving to Friendswood after graduating from UH Clear Lake after being disabled in the military. And Sun Meadow is one of the few options we had back in 2008 to actually move into Friendswood, other than renting in one of the few multifamily dwellings that are available in the downtown area. The current usage that's allowed right now is obviously not desirable to anybody, I don't think. Nobody wants to see the multifamily home section built as multifamily homes, or perhaps there could be. However, right now, Mr. Patterson has actually gone out of his way to what could be lose a significant potential gain for him if he pushed to build at maximum density. There's that word again. If he pushed to build at the smallest lots possible, fit as many units as possible in the current zoning, that's not what anybody would want to see. And that's not what he's offering. Planning and zoning has already gone through all of the legal necessities. It's kind of mysterious where, after planning and zoning has already gone through their process, that a 90-foot rule appeared out of thin air that doesn't appear to be in any city documents anywhere else, nor does it appear to have been applied to any other subdivisions in the city. The issue of whether Mr. Patterson is a local company or not, that just speaks to the stereotype of Sun Meadow being part of the good old boy system. And I think that's something we really should try to avoid, especially if we want to enhance the attraction of commercial development from outside the city. So, asking how did you find it, how did you even hear about this, kind of begs the question of, is there something else going on? And you might want to consult the city attorney, but as a trained accountant, I know that the appearance of impropriety is just as damaging as impropriety itself. And that is the standard of the accounting profession, that's the standard of the legal profession, and I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be the standard of public service. If we can't count on our leaders to recuse themselves if there is a conflict of interest, we've got a problem.
John Petering, 524 Belmont. I stand in favor of the proposed PUD known as Friendswood Trails. I've lived in Friendswood for just over 10 years, and we moved into Sun Meadow just as the golf course was no longer going to be a golf course. Developers have come and gone. We've seen them come and go and do nothing with the property. But the current developer, Mr. Patterson, has gone out of his way to communicate, as you've heard before, work with the residents of our subdivision to come up with a plan that is mutually agreeable. The plan is before you, and I urge you to do the right thing with it. Vote in favor of what is in the best interest of the city, the residents of Sun Meadow, and yes, even of Mr. Patterson, even if he isn't from Friendswood. He has invested in our city with the purchase of this land. He'll be even more heavily invested if he can see this plan through. Don't delay or let this proposal die, so the previous PUD will continue to stand, a plan that benefits few and does not take the needs and desires of the current residents into account. I strongly urge you, the council, to vote in favor of the proposed PUD.
Hello, my name is Slater Sauer. I've been a resident of Sun Meadows for 25 years now. I'm here in favor of the PUD, the PUD, and this is not a question of development or no development. This land will be developed one day, and currently it is zoned for multifamily homes and what have you. So that's the current zoned development. That's what it is. The PUD, there's been a lot of effort and thought put into the PUD, and it's a well thought out plan. I'm not going to go into all the benefits of it, but it does have unanimous P&Z support, and that means something. Those folks don't normally vote unanimously, so that speaks very loud to all of us. It also has FISD support. There's the merits of the plan are in the letter, and there are quite a few good reasons to vote for the PUD, and that's what I'm asking you to do, is vote for the PUD. Just for grins, I went on to the Community Impact newspaper. It's online. There's a survey. I don't know how legit it is, but right now it has over 90% of the PUD over the current plan. That would mean almost a unanimous vote if the city council were to reflect that, and that means something. I think I've got the yellow card, so I'll just close it pretty quickly here. I was looking at a document. It's from 100 Rules for NASA Project Managers. You can put leaders in there. Everybody in this room is a leader. And it says, rule number 1, don't be too proud so that you can't change your position, especially if wise counsel shows you a better way. The second thing is good is the enemy of best. In this case, the PUD is the best plan. So I ask you to vote yes for the PUD, a vote of yes, a vote for the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim Snodgrass, Jamie Ashby, and Ralph Blow.
Hi, I'm Kim Snodgrass. I live on Dorado Drive. I have appreciation for, everybody that's worked very hard and, people that, like Mr. Patterson, who, has changed the original plan of Friendswood Trail, better drainage, green space. Appreciation of the people of Sun Meadow who have voiced concerns. I've listened to a lot of sides of this debate, and I do not want to see the proposal for the PUD go forward. I have a lot of curiosity surrounding some of the things that have gone forward. I'm curious about Sun Meadow residents that have spoken in favor of the current proposal for Friendswood Trails. My curiosity surrounds the original proposal of 91 home sites with 90-foot lots behind their homes in the horseshoe area. In the current proposal, all 91 of those homes from the original plan have disappeared. The mysteriously missing home sites dramatically affect the density and lot sizes in the other areas of Sun Meadow. I continue to be curious if these residents are interested in Friendswood or their current view. In the current PUD proposal, there are 5 sections. 4 sections are below the 90-foot ordinance. The proposal has 4 sections of 336 homes, an average lot size of 62.5 feet. This is not close to being consistent or reasonable in any Friendswood neighborhood or ordinance. I continue to be curious how all the homes from the horseshoe area were removed. Under the current proposal, Sun Meadow will need to manage and maintain the horseshoe area lots all the homeowners of that subdivision will have to pay for it. So I'd like to talk about compliance with the ordinance. of 90-foot lots, keeping consistency of quality development and housing in our community. We want to keep the neighborhoods consistent with the majority of city ordinances, keeping homes that increase our city's home values, not tract homes that detract from the consistency of Friendswood. The community deserves a plan that adheres to the 90-foot lot ordinance, maintains green space and walking trails. Buyers are looking for communities that are consistent and proven to keep their home values. Friendswood's current structure does provide many different levels for homeowners to get into their homes. Roads and traffic. I'd like to talk about the scenarios. Dorado Drive is open on both scenarios. There is not a reason to open that area at all, really. So just in an effort, I think we need to be consistent, follow ordinances. We need to take a holistic approach. The PUD, as it stands now, should not be approved. Let's look at what is right for Friendswood. We can make sensible improvements. We can make this work for the city, existing residents of Sun Meadow, and not drag issues out through petitions and appeals. Friendswood should not sell themselves short, and neither should the residents of Sun Meadow. I think we all support growth, but only the right growth for the community.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Ashby, and I live at 444 Glen Eagles Drive in Sun Meadow. And I am a fan of the PUD. On the late night show with David Letterman, they used to have a bit called the Top 10 Reasons, and they would count down the top 10 reasons for whatever. So I'm going to present to you tonight the top 10 reasons why our council members and our mayor should also be fans of the PUD. Reason number 10. The city leaders and citizens will have a voice throughout the development process, which is not true of current zoning. Reason number 9 that you should be a fan of the PUD is that the density of 1.6 units per acre is less than the 2.7 required for a single-family residential. Reason number 8 you should be a fan of the PUD is that the PUD has fewer homes and will put less traffic onto 528. Number 7 is that the PUD supports and enhances the comprehensive plan which city leaders are supposed to follow when making sound decisions for the city. Reason number 6 that you should also be a fan of the PUD is that it provides for 80 acres of green space, including the 47 acres of our horseshoe, which can serve as the park that we are all supposed to have within walking distance of our homes, according to the comprehensive plan. Reason number 5 is that the drainage and improvements to the city infrastructure will go above and beyond what is required under current zoning and will be paid for by the developer. So at no cost to the city, you'll get all of those improvements, and that means you're good stewards of our money. Reason number 4 is that the variety of lot homes and sizes will be attractive to young professionals just starting their families, and this will help to provide those students that we need in the lower grades so that we don't have to send so much money away to other school districts. Reason number 3 that you should be a fan of the PUD, and this one has already been mentioned, is that it was unanimously passed by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and someone already mentioned that that's a rare occurrence. So why have Planning and Zoning perform the vetting of this development and then not listen to their recommendations? Another really good reason number 2, is that there are 585 homes in Sun Meadow, and we obviously have the ability to rally when it's necessary to do so. So you might vastly increase your ability to be reelected by being a fan of the PUD. And reason number 1 that you should be a fan of the PUD is that it's the right thing to do. This is a no-brainer, gentlemen. Put your personal agendas aside and vote yes for the Friendswood Trails. Be a fan of the PUD.
My name's Ralph Blau. I live at 650 West Castle Harbor in Sun Meadow. Let me make a point that everyone needs to understand this evening. Development of this land is going forward. It's going to happen. Either the PUD is proposed or as zoned, it will happen, and then that includes the horseshoe. Anyone that thinks that they're going to kill development or get a chance to develop it, that ain't going to happen. I've received interest by builders that know me that would love to build in Friendswood, and they're ready to put up their money. I understand, and I have no connection with Park. I know him from just this development. And I don't live where I will be affected if it doesn't go through. So it's my own belief that this is the best plan. I understand the fear of change of residents and flooding. While proposed PUD has gone above requirements to prevent it, no one can guarantee that flooding will never occur. I have worked for FEMA in regards to flooding and saw flooding that no one ever thought that they would see. Water can run uphill, I learned. Residents of Windsor Estate have worried that their home values, they should not be. Home values are made on subdivision sales and like-kind comparisons. With a target price of $325,000 for a 55-foot lot home, Friendswood Trails, it is within 20% of what homes in Windsor Estate are selling for. Some. There's more expensive. And the dollar per square foot value will be higher. Finally, one thing that, excuse me a second. Finally, one thing that the master planned communities, this development starts with the least expensive homes first. A lot of developers, the big master plan communities, and I've worked with developers that have done them, and I've worked with builders that were involved in them. They will wholesale out the lots once they've recouped their most profitable sections, and they've reached a zero state sum where they no longer can make any more money off from it. It's quicker and easier to sell to companies that will come in and build sub-zero, smaller homes and cheaper homes. Thank you.
Randy Worrell, Henry Stowe, Nancy Kessling.
Thanks for letting me have the opportunity to share some things. I moved into Friendswood almost, I guess it's 14 years ago. And like I've said, I think 3 times before up here, we moved in on a Saturday, and Monday we were here fighting the first development in 2002. I did a lot of thinking about this yesterday and today, and I've been in a lot of these meetings, and I think what it comes down to is what's best for Sun Meadow and what the city of Friendswood wants to represent. I think we've got people that feel 2 different ways in Sun Meadow. I think the people around the horseshoe really are glad if they go with this plan that they won't have homes built next to them, and I understand that. Makes sense. I'll have a home right behind my house. There will be my next door neighbors 15 feet, and that's what Mr. Patterson told me, 15 feet from his line, his back property line will be a curb. So we all have different feelings about this for a lot of reasons. I care about Sun Meadow just as much as people that have gotten up here and have talked too. I think after talking to several board members this week that the 90-foot width average is a good ordinance. And I'll tell you why, and I know a lot of people don't feel this, but I think it says that we care about the kind of homes that we're going to have here. We care about those things. I don't live in one of those houses. My house cost $121,000. My wife stays at home with 3 kids, and So I'm not that guy. There are plenty of homes in Sun Meadow right now for people to move into because mine sure won't go for any 350,000 or whatever. But I will say this. One prudent thing we could all do at this meeting tonight is to wait and to gather more information. And I'll tell you why. Because people want to be in Friendswood School District. We only have 2 areas of land to be developed. And since we do, there's going to be a lot of people who want to move in here. And we can do better than the plan that's proposed now. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. I'm Henry Stowe, 204 Palm Air Drive. I become familiar with this area about 2 years ago. One of the reasons I believe people would want to move to Friendswood is the lack of traffic, but traffic is building because surrounding areas are being built. And I'm not really satisfied with what I've heard about plans to address that issue. We're talking about adding 500 homes, and that's going to generate an extra 2,000 car trips per day on 528. Right now, it takes 20 minutes, 25 minutes, just to get to Interstate 45. It's a 7-mile drive. It's unacceptably long. I also think that unless there are plans to compensate the people who would be affected by flooding due to the changes in land use management regulations at the federal level, unless there are plans to compensate them for additional flood insurance, I think this plan should be tossed out the window. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Nancy Kessling. I've been in Sun Meadow for 31 years. Mostly everybody that's in favor of the PUD has said pretty much everything that needs to be said. I only wanted to emphasize 2 points. The first point is that what you do in terms of this PUD you can't really stop development. There's a lot of people in this room that think that if you disprove this new plan, that somehow or other the golf course is going to stay the way it is. Well, that's not going to happen. Patterson is going to go ahead and develop it, and I have been following his offers since he came into the process, and he's a very considerate and generous person. What he's offering us is the best that we're going to get, and maybe better than anything that is going to come down the pike in the years to come. Now, you can wait another 5 years or 10 years if you want. I don't see any point to it. He's addressed every issue satisfactorily, and if it was me, I would just be done with all of you and say, go ahead and build it anyway and forget about what you say, because what you say isn't going to stop it, okay? He can go ahead and do it without your permission, and that's a fact. And so in all fairness to the effort that he's put in and the homeowners have put in all these meetings that we've gone to, he has really gone over and above what he needs to go to do. And so I would respectfully ask that you consider all this effort. We would all love to have left it as a golf course. I was heartbroken when it went into decay, just like everybody else was. But that's not going to happen. It's not ever going to be a golf course again, and it's going to be developed. And so just let the man do the job that he's been working so hard and for so long to get approval with the homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam Hill and Fay Roberson.
I'm Adam Hill, 917 Sunset, builder, developer, been here forever. I appreciate you guys that have spoken with me in depth at 6:30 in the morning, lunchtime after a long vacation, but taking the time to listen to what I have to say. The approach this time is going to be, as a builder, we have an accountant here. We have a realtor here. When you're a builder and you go to buy lots, you look at the lot, the price, the value of what you should pay on the lot is 20% of the value of your sale price. I've given y'all a sheet there, and I took Sterling Creek, which is a gated private community of large lots, and I took West Ranch, and I broke it down to a price per curb foot. And if you look at Mr. Patterson, he does it until he gets to 70-foot lots. He does not meet the break even for the city of Friendswood and what it costs us to provide for our citizens. We would be in a deficit on his 55, 60s, and 65-foot lots, which is the vast majority of his lots. So I appreciate the people of Sun Meadow wanting us to go and take care of them, but there's a lot of other citizens here that don't want to pay that tab. I do believe that Mr. Patterson's going to move forward. It's a great piece of land. It's in Friendswood, Texas. He just needs to do it correctly. To answer your questions about 90-foot lots, that's been an ordinance before I've been building. I've only been here 20 years building, so it's a long time. But if you look at Georgetown, 90-foot lots, they came to you with smaller lots, you sent them back, said bring me 90. You look at Beezer Homes on the Wickham tract, did not comply with commercial, they kicked them out. This project does not comply with commercial. You look at Guillen, back behind Sterling Creek, 90-foot lots. If you look at Sterling Creek, it was done with 90-foot lots. So I think that if you move forward with this specific use of this property, you've been very consistent for the past 2 or 3 years that I know of, long as I can remember, at 90-foot lots. It is a city ordinance. I think that if you go back here, all these other guys like me behind are going to come back and say, you know, what gives, what's special here. I feel like that we've talked about it. I think we've been over it. I think that he will stay here. Friendswood is worth it. We do have rules. Everybody knows them that builds here and develops here, and a lot of us abide by them. And it's a successful place for all of us to be. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
No notes, just from the heart, okay? I'm going to speak to you guys. First, I think that you've been beaten up pretty good tonight, but I know all of you, and I know you're good guys. So I've heard some things that certainly I disagree with. I disagree with some of the things. I wish that people would learn the ordinances or the city, what they have on the books and stuff, because I've heard some stuff that's either I don't remember, and I got a pretty good memory, or either somebody's got some things mixed up. And I want to tell you, guys, that there is as many people out there against this as there is for it, and I will assure you that. I am not going, I get sent all the emails, and I'm not walking out there like some of them are doing, trying to twist arms and get them to take their names off and all this kind of stuff. This has never been Sun Meadow before to get divided up, I'll assure you. And it breaks my heart as many years I've worked on this, 16 years plus, and I have never seen this happen before. And it's the way it's being handled out there. And I hope you will slow this process down. You guys have not even had a chance yet. Yeah, P&Z has had their chance, but you guys hadn't, and I believe you're the top government in this city. Our council is, with the elected officials. And this will just be our third time before you. So I hope you take your chance, Mr. Mayor, because you are the leader of this and elected council members. But I just want you to know I'm speaking for the people that are not speaking for themselves. Thank you very much.
No more cards, right? Okay. I'm going to recess the council meeting, convene a meeting of the City of Friendswood Employee Benefit Trust per the posted agenda. Notice is hereby given of a special meeting of the City of Friendswood Employee Benefit Trust to be held Monday, August 1st, 2016, 7 p.m. at the City Council, or City of Friendswood City Hall, 910 South Friendswood Drive, Friendswood, Texas. For the purpose of considering the following agenda items. City of Friendswood Employee Benefit Trust serves the right to retire into executive session concerning any of the agenda items whenever it is considered necessary and legally justified pursuant to Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 551. Call the meeting to order. The consent agenda. Do I hear a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Now we'll adjourn the meeting of the Employee Benefit Trust and continue down our agenda. Reconvene the City Council meeting. Discussion and possible action regarding authorizing the monthly transfer of funds from the City of Friendswood to the City of Friendswood Employee Benefit Trust. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed, show it to be unanimous. Item 11, discussion and possible action regarding the disposition of RFP number 2016-06 for janitorial services of the city buildings. I'll make a motion to approve it, but I want my motion to read for the $159,000. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion. James, I'd rather you submit the overage up to the 223 to us with agenda items revising the amount. That way we're looking at a $60,000 difference, and we would get to see what we're paying for. So that's why I made the motion for $159,000, which is the low bid on this services. Okay?
That's fine.
Okay. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. Discussion and possible action regarding approval of an easement agreement with Lewis and Perry related to Lake Friendswood. Do I hear a motion?
Motion approved. Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Show it to be unanimous. Discussion and possible action regarding approving a Chapter 380 Business Incentive Grant application for economic development with Tanos Land Holding 2 LLC for Tanos 2 at 802 and 804 South Friendswood Drive, and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Councilmember Rocky.
I just want to be clear that the incentive kicks in if they bring in the proper businesses that qualify, correct?
That's correct, for the second part of the incentive, the 15,000.
Thank you.
Seeing no more discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Show it to be unanimous. Item 15, ordinance number 2016-19. First reading of an ordinance changing the prior zoning classification of 9 acres of land consisting of approximately, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. 14. Thank you. Consideration and possible action regarding the following. A resolution of the City of Friendswood authorizing and approving the creation of Friendswood Downtown Economic Development Corporation to act on behalf of the City of Friendswood and repealing all other resolutions inconsistent or in conflict herewith. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Should be unanimous. Now we'll go on to 15. I think that is what everybody's here for. First reading of an ordinance changing the prior zoning classification of 9 tracts of land consisting of approximately 261.09 acres from single-family residential SFR and multifamily residential medium density to planned unit development, and 2.23 acres from multifamily residential medium density to neighborhood commercial to be known as Friendswood Trails property, commonly known as the Old Sun Meadow Golf Course, as more formally described. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion. You're first, you're second. He made the second. Okay.
This has been discussed, and I've stated an opinion before. And I've been thinking about a lot of the discussion and that went on last time, and I wanted to kind of think through some of it. a lot of it focuses on the 90-foot frontages. And I actually like the fact that we have an ordinance that starts with the 90-foot. I think it sets the tone of what we expect. And what it does is it requires somebody, when they want to have an exception, to go through a process like this one, that to my count has now had 7 or 8 opportunities for the public to speak, has been in front of planning and zoning, help me out, 4 or 5 times, and been in front of us a couple of times. So when you start with the 90-foot and then somebody says, I want to do something different, you're putting the leverage in our hands, and you're requiring the developer to go through what can't be a trivial or fun process, but they've got to go through it and convince us. And that's what they're doing here, is they're saying, we have a better idea here, and this is what we'd like to do. So the process has worked perfectly from the standpoint of government. We had a setting, the person wants a change, they've brought the change to us, it's had ample opportunity to be discussed. And it does result in lower density, which is what the original 90-foot ordinance was for. The second issue that's come up again is, is the developer from Friendswood, which I interpret is really code of, can we trust the developer? And that's always an issue. You want to make sure that you can trust the developer. We have people who come and build in Friendswood who are from all over the place. In fact, I sat on the stage on the 4th of July, and we gave our highest award to the HEB for their community impact. Gave them a trophy, and as far as I know, no one from the Earl Butts family lives in Friendswood, you know. So we have people that come from the outside, and they do wonderful by us, and they participate. And I have no doubt the developers here, who has enlisted some local help as well, has every intention of meeting his word and putting the kind of development in there that we'll be proud of. He has listened, he has made changes. Everything he's done, from traffic to drainage, to green space, to saving 100-year-old trees, he's done. So I actually, I respect everybody's opinion, including the people who want 90-foot lots for whatever reason, but I believe we have a piece of property that's a challenge to develop, and we have a builder who's put together a very interesting plan, and I frankly just think it's the best thing for Friendswood.
Councilmember Foreman?
I agree with you, Councilmember Rocky. I think this development is a good one. I like the fact that the density is lower than it would be if it were all 90 by 130. So we will have fewer homes out there than we would have if we put 90 by 130 through the entire 261 acres. That's important. Also helps with the drainage issue in Sun Meadows. And to the speaker's point a few minutes ago, I would say this is a unique development. This isn't an upstart development like a Georgetown where you're going to go out and basically put in a bunch of homes in a development. This development is actually woven in with the Sun Meadow development. And we appreciate all of you coming and speaking and talking to us about all the things that you see on this. And frankly, I know there are some that are not for this plan, but personally, I think this is the best plan that we could hope for. I appreciate Mr. Patterson's efforts all along the way. He has really been there and interacted with everybody and made sure that he was hearing everyone, and that's important. So another issue that I did not like with the as-zoned plan is the multifamily. I don't think anybody is for the multifamily. I think if we polled the room, nobody in here really wanted to see an apartment building go up on that piece of property. So I appreciate that we're going to replace that multifamily. You're going to upzone that to single-family residential, and I think this is a plus. So I personally think this is a good plan.
We'll go next. Councilmember Enoch, then who else? You? Bill? I'll go. Okay. Enoch, then Hill.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to clarify a couple of things, and Murad, I probably need your help on this if you don't mind. Now, one of the misnomers I've heard is that we have to go with Plan A or Plan B because to make any changes at this point would take too long and would require to start the process all over. Can you talk to us a little bit about the difference between tweaks to the plan versus material changes to a plan?
Sure. What you have before you this evening is a conceptual plan of sorts within the PUD application. You may recall a couple of years ago you changed the process, or council collectively changed the process for plan unit development applications to allow either an extensive engineering study up front along with the land use plan or a conceptual plan which requires the engineering to be done after the fact. The applicant has decided to do the conceptual plan route, and that's what's before you this evening. Y'all can make changes to this plan between first reading and second reading. For instance, if you were to approve this tonight on first reading, you can make some tweaks to the plan, so given that you don't substantially alter the plan. And substantial is it's a gray area. If you have basically maintained the same road network, the same average, I don't want to say average, but typically the same amount of lots, the same makeup of lots, you're fine. If you want to add a few 90s or take away some 60s or vice versa, you're within the realm of being okay. It's if you were to go through this plan and say, you know what, throw everything aside, I want to see 100% different what you had before you, that would require starting over the process. That make sense?
Yes, thank you. So if this plan were approved tonight, can you talk to us a little bit about the next steps that would occur?
You would have another reading of this ordinance at the next council meeting in September. If that were to be approved as well, then the developer would be allowed to start the platting and development process, which requires an extensive traffic impact analysis, an extensive H&H drainage model to be submitted to the City of Friendswood and the Galveston County Consolidated Drainage District for approval. Theoretically, all the platting and the drainage and engineering for this is going to take 90 to 120 days. And that's as if it's fast-tracked and there are no issues with it. If once that's approved, they can submit for final plats on the first sections for the development. And that'll take another 30 to 60 days.
Can you talk to me a little more about the traffic impact analysis? How will that flow? Who's going to get to review that and get to say, yes, it's representative of Friendswood, or no, we have some issues? And
Sure. The traffic impact analysis would have to be conducted by a registered professional engineer specializing in traffic engineering in the state of Texas. It would be reviewed by Patrick Donnard, our city engineer, myself, as well as the police department to evaluate its relevancy to the neighborhood out there and make sure that it complies with good engineering practice and what's physically out in that neighborhood. So it would evaluate the impact of this development relative to the existing road network. It would evaluate the level of service of each of the road networks, which it graded between an A and an F, with A being very little congestion and very little wait time, to F being horrendous congestion and wait time.
so how is that analysis communicated back to the developer and to council, and how would it move forward from there?
The analysis would identify remedies or recommended improvements that would need to be implemented in order to mitigate any impact to the neighborhood or the road network that's out there. For instance, it may require acceleration or deceleration lanes along FM 528. It may require additional turn bays along some of the boulevards that are built within the neighborhood. It may require alternative access points. I know a question had come up to me this past week that if it required, right now the plan doesn't show any connections into Windsong. It doesn't show, it shows a gated access into the backside of Palm Royale, and it shows one connection into Dorado. If the traffic impact analysis were to come back and say all those connections need to be opened up, then it would have to come back to this body here as an amendment to the PUD, which is starting the rezoning process all over again.
Second, or my next question, if this is approved tonight, do we know what requirements are going to be put on the builders? Are there going to be minimum square footage requirements? Do we know anything as far as constraints, as far as what can be built on these lots?
This current draft ordinance, as well as our our regulation matrix and our zoning ordinance, does not establish minimum lot size, or establishes minimum lot sizes, but it does not establish minimum square footages for the homes that are being built on them. We have a lot coverage requirement that dictates how much of your lot can be covered with the footprint of your house or the structure on it, but that's the only criteria we have in our current ordinance.
And then if this is not approved tonight, and they decide to move forward with the way it's currently zoned, what does that look like?
If they were to move forward with the current zoning, the stuff with regard to the H&H drainage model would still have to be done. The stuff related to the traffic impact analysis would have to be done. The alternative would simply be that any of the access points that currently potentially could connect into Sun Meadow or Windsong, the city has no recourse into denying access into those public streets. It would just simply be based on the traffic impact analysis and the findings therein.
And then can you talk to us a little bit about the density calculation versus 90-foot lots? What is actually a requirement? How is it on the books?
Currently, the zoning ordinance for single-family residential zoning category stipulates 2.7 dwelling units per acre. That's gross acreage, so you would be taking into account the entire 262 acres, which includes the 47 acres on the horseshoe. Ultimately, whether or not the developer can achieve 2.7 units will be dependent on his drainage study, because it's going to set aside certain amount of acreage for detention based upon the flow of water through that subdivision. The road network's going to take some percentage of the land off the development table. So theoretically, the current zoning would allow 2.7 units per acre. At the end of the day, until it's fully designed and vetted, I can't tell you how many units they would be able to fit back there.
Councilmember Hill?
Well, first, I need to apologize to Mr. Patterson. If I offended you at the last meeting, I'm sorry. It was not my intent. I am not up here to insult people. My only purpose of being up here is to do what is best for this city. And if I offended you, I'm quite sorry. Where you come from means nothing to me. When I made the remark about local developers in the past, I only meant to say that all the local citizens who developed property in the past with Friendswood values have chosen to do 90-foot lots. The only exception is your plan and West Ranch, big PUDs of several hundred acres that want more houses per acre. And they offer offsetting green spaces and this, that, and the other. But the bottom line is, some of them you can jump from roof to roof, and that's not Friendswood to me, and I'm sorry. We just have to agree to disagree. I talked to Mr. Patterson. It was a good conversation. I asked him if he could compromise with us in any way, bring the lot sizes up a little bit, and he emphatically said no. This is what it is, and if you don't like it, I'm going to build a 90-foot thing. And by the way, I've got a copy here. Everybody talks about all the houses. On the conceptual 90-foot plan, if you want to count them, 391 lots. If you want to count them, you're more than welcome to. I don't know where all these numbers come from. This is the conceptual plan of what was laid out there before, and you can count the lots. They're numbered. 391. 25% of the lots in the trails are less than 60 foot. 75% of them are less than 90 foot. Mr. Patterson has sold y'all on his drainage. Whichever plan he builds, the state will require that he can't put any water on your property, and your property that is draining today must continue to drain the same way. He has no drainage plan approved by the drainage district. He has no approved traffic plan. He has not done an environmental study. There was very close to the oil fields out there. He has no back exit whenever he builds the lots on the other side of Chigger Creek. There's no county roads back there. It's owned by an oil company. The city has no guarantee of anything when we leave here tonight if this passes, other than the fact that this tract of land, this 260 plus acres, is rezoned into these smaller lots. We have no guarantee that he will build this project. I trust he will. I hope he will. And I'll do everything I can to make sure he does everything he said. But I think the people of Sun Meadow are selling themselves short. I ran that golf course out there for 3 years. It is the most beautiful remaining piece of property left in this city. I did a lot of work in the forest of Friendswood. It was more difficult to develop than this. So it can be done. It's all about the money. We turned down the Whitcomb property. Beazer Home was going to build out there. Has economic development made a recommendation on this? I don't see them here. They're noticeably not here. But they killed that project because he was a couple of acres short on the Vision 2020 20% commercial requirement. This has 2% commercial, but nobody says a word. I don't know. That's where I go back to the two standards. I don't know why we don't treat everybody the same. 2%, they had about 19%, and they were told, the economic development came up here and spoke and basically talked the council out of approving that because of the lack of commercial on 528, the 528 corridor. Well, that's our big commercial deal. We push it, we praise it, and we turn one significant tract down over there, which now is totally belongs to a church. 0 taxes. Well, like I say, tonight when we leave, if this gets approved, and I have no idea whether it will or not, I think Sun Meadow deserves better. I think Friendswood deserves better. We have a 19-page agreement with West Ranch Management District. Very legal, very documented. We are having difficulty with them right now getting them to fulfill their commitments they made 10 years ago to a previous city manager and a previous council. I trust Mr. Patterson is a good man. Talking to him, I think he's a very nice man, a very fine man. But we have no guarantees. He could go in and build first 2 or 3 sections, pick the prime real estate, the easy work, and he can move on. He is not going to build one house out there. He's going to sell it to builders. We have no control, really, of what they will build. Pardon me for looking. I asked the city manager last week, how much does a house have to cost to pay in taxes enough to pay for city services? After the 20% exemption that everybody gets, a house would have to be $365,000 to pay enough taxes to provide the city services that we all enjoy. We have no guarantee of what price range house he will build. No guarantee. So we're at his mercy and at the mercy of the builders he chooses. So I would support this if we had more guarantees, more things in writing. He has taken advantage, the mayor knows this, 10 years ago, he would have to have all this work done before he could get rezoned. We changed the rules so builders, developers like Mr. Patterson wouldn't have to go out and spend $150,000 to get all this engineering work done, all these traffic studies, before they could get their land rezoned. I know he's probably got at least $50,000 invested in surveying and things like that, but he doesn't have the big bucks in yet. And he's taken advantage of a process that I helped model. And I don't blame him, but it goes back to the guarantees that we do not have. So I wish you the best, Mr. Patterson, and if this gets approved, I'll be glad to work with you. I just think that Friendswood and Sun Meadow deserves better.
Well, I don't really have anything to add that I haven't already said before, other than, you know, the reason that we emphasize the 90-foot lot is because it is a city ordinance. not because it's something that we pull out of the sky and we use it to our advantage to leverage developments we want or we don't want. And it's the same ordinance that planning and zoning knows. And it's the same ordinance that for over 5 years, every developer that's come through that door has been told they have to adhere to. Every one of them. And the majority of them have had a significantly higher number percentage-wise than the 25% of 90-foot lots that are on this plan. So for those of y'all that pay any attention to what goes on at City Hall, for those of y'all that attend the meetings, you know one thing about me, and that I'm always gonna be consistent. It looks foolish on our parts when you can't decide or you have no idea which direction we're gonna go on a certain issue because the rules change. We've been very consistent for over 5 years. And for whatever reason, whatever motive, and planning and zoning knows this, every single developer that's come through the door has been told to go back and increase their 90-foot lot size. But for some reason, this development that first came in here with about 10% at 90-foot lots was pushed through with a unanimous vote. I'm very, very concerned when we become inconsistent and unpredictable. I think when you get out of your car in your driveway, or you get out of your car at City Hall, you should know exactly how your city government's going to behave on every issue, because every issue will be treated the same. And we've done that. And for whatever reason, this time we're deciding not to. Planning and zoning decided not to. I don't understand the motive, but I do know this, that you can count on me standing up for what the ordinances are and what this city stands for. And that's why I will vote against this PUD.
Might as well take my turn. I'd like to start off by saying I think everybody on both sides made very, 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 very good points. What I'm hearing from those that are against it is that it's inconsistent with other neighborhoods in the city. It may or may not be the case. I think Sun Meadow itself has 75-foot wide lots, and of course it was built many, many years ago in a different time. It's not the only non-90-foot lot subdivision in the city. The concerns about traffic being added to the area, and I think that's certainly a legitimate concern, but to counter that, there will be a traffic study, and if it will impart undue load on FM 528, Mr. Patterson will have to come back to council with some sort of provisions to address that issue. There's some flooding concerns. But I guess my understanding, in anything that we do is certainly not going to make the problem any worse. And my understanding, it's quite likely to improve the current situation where we have some needs. The subdivision was originally built late 60s, early 70s, and there was some, what's in place or some of the equipment we're dealing with now, and I'm looking at you, Mo, but isn't necessarily consistent with what we would do today, and there are going to be some improvements to this equipment that Sun Meadow will benefit from. The economic development recommendation that Councilman Hill addressed, I believe you just didn't hear from it because it didn't result in a commercial downzoning.
had you been interested in that, I'm certain CEDC would have been happy to provide a recommendation on the project, but I don't believe. Well, there's not really, there isn't one or nothing, it's nothing that's being attached, but I would certainly, CEDC, I trust, would be happy to provide a recommendation on something like this in the future. What I've heard in favor, it certainly seems as though a majority of the Sun Meadow residents are in favor of this, having looked at. Mayor, could you use that gavel? It's my turn to talk.
Thank you, thank you.
Certainly by it was 11-4 up here tonight, but I'm probably getting them 10-1 in favor of it. New PUD removes apartments from the development. There will be fewer homes built. My understanding, I may have to get a math lesson from Councilman Hill about that later. It does provide a tremendous amount of green space that I don't think most developers would provide. There's separation between the existing development and the new development. The horseshoe area is left open for development, and I guess the current plan, Mr. Patterson, would be to have a foundation of some sort, serve as a caretaker for that property, the horseshoe piece. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
It's not just a one-sentence answer, but
Okay.
but I can tell you that from day one, and with everybody I've met with, and I've put this in writing, and it's on numerous records, I will be at the table because we own that property, the 47 acres. We will not let it go to waste or to weeds or to anything else that would detract from my name, and my name's been used a whole lot up here tonight, so I appreciate that because I take it very personally. So I'm going to be proud of that 47 acres and whatever it turns out to be. It may be extremely passive. It may have different types. It's going to have different types of activities, I'm sure. At the very least, we will be at the table, and there will be an entity that ends up owning that property that we will be a part of and that will be maintained forever, subject to an improvement plan that we will be part of.
All right, and this is obviously going to get a second reading and a second vote at some point, assuming it passes this evening. But it is a challenging piece to develop, and understand, Councilman Hill's point out, it's not the first challenging development in the city, but I don't think anybody's going to disagree that it is. And it's not a greenfield project, as was pointed out earlier, that it has those challenges. P&Z does support this unanimously. We're going to get a nice trail system out of it. It's not negatively impacting the school system. And with regards to consistency, I'll only point out one thing, is that I don't know when we've last had a new subdivision of this size. It would be West Ranch, I presume, which is about to wrap up, and it's been building now for quite some number of years. I don't know if this 90-foot requirement is putting a chokehold on development in the city. In general, I favor the 90-foot lot rule, but it's not going to work everywhere. Regarding consistency in council behavior, though, one thing we have been consistent in doing is rejecting recommendations from PNC and CEDC over the last 3 or 4 years that I've been up here. We've not been consistent with regards to commercial zoning changes, where we have consistently done is change zoning to allow churches where it was supposed to be commercial development. I guess I need to point out, this isn't Section 8 housing we're talking about putting in here. This is pretty nice stuff. When this first came up a while back, I quite honestly was sitting on the fence about which way to go, and I discussed this with Mr. Patterson, but the bank's got a right to sell the property. Somebody's got a right to develop it. Is it ideal? Is it exactly what I'd like to see? No, there's a few things I'd like to see done a little bit different, but life's a series of compromises, and I think we're at a pretty good point on this thing, so I'm going to go ahead and support it tonight.
Do you happen to know who your builders are, Park?
We have a list of builders, and they are the names that you've heard of as far as a top tier of reputations and builders that you'd be proud of having in your community. I can honestly tell you this, that because it's such a competitive business, they don't want to be revealed. I expect my phone, it's on silent right now. I expect I'll get calls later on this evening and first thing in the morning. But I can promise you, they're builders that you'd be proud of.
Okay, thank you. What I've heard said is the 90-foot lots is what Friendswood was built on. Well, there's different, that's for single-family residential. There's garden homes, there's, what is it, medium density. There's different size lots, just with different labels. And I wanted everybody to be clear to that. We're not throwing ordinances under the bus and just treating people willy-nilly around here. This is coming in as a PUD, which is an excellent candidate for an infill property, like Sun Meadow is. There's a buffer between all the houses, and when I was looking at the layout, if you do 90 by 130s, you're gonna have fence to fence backing up to old houses to new houses. And I didn't think that was as desirable a look for the subdivision and to give you separation from your neighbors. This project has Windsor Estates on the left, Windsong on the right, Sun Meadow in the middle, and it's all got at least a 15-foot buffer. Some places it's 100 feet, some places it's less, but minimum of 15 feet buffer between properties. The project is just zoning right now. The developer will have to deal with the drainage district. He'll have to deal with traffic impact analysis. So this is like the precursor to going forward. There's a lot more to be done here. You do 90 by 130s, you don't have the trail system. You have the potential of having houses on the horseshoe. This PUD does not put houses on the horseshoe. And the primary use of a planned unit development is where you have infill properties or where you have areas that are difficult to develop. And from what Mr. Patterson said, there's some large trees out there that I've noticed, and you're going to take care in saving those. Okay. Huh? Yeah. They're pretty. It's going to increase the water pressure in the subdivision, which needs to be looped. You're going to take care of that? Do you know if this will fill that water tower out there? No? You don't know? You don't? Okay.
We are, as far as I understand, talking with the engineering department previously, that city is looking to upsize the water line from a standard 8 to 12 inch that subdivision required to a 16-inch line.
Okay.
Obviously, the difference city is going to participate in that for benefit of not only the subdivision, but future subdivisions that will connect.
Excellent. So if we participate, increasing to the 16-inch line, it'll fill the water tower, right? So yay.
What does participate mean? Who's covering which?
What it means is that.
That'd be.
You want to go first, Sir?
Yeah. Patrick?
Typically in projects like that, if a requirement is 8-inch and the municipality would like to have a 16-inch, then typically we would participate by the material cost for the 8-inch line to the 16-inch line. So the putting of it in the ground is still the same in essence, but we pay for the additional cost of the material.
I asked first.
Yeah, can I finish, you guys?
Hurry up.
I don't think yeah, hold on. There, that's the first time I ever used that. Where we're at in this process right now, I would be in support of it. Okay, there's drainage questions to be answered, there's traffic questions to be answered, there's utility answers that we need to have. But at this, as we're reviewing this, I think you've done an exceptional job of finding out what the community's desires are and what the community needs. Now let's go forward and see where this takes us, okay? Now, you and then you.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Mr. Patterson, you're gonna get your small lots and lots of them, and you're gonna make lots of money. Would you entertain the idea of paying the additional costs on the materials on that water line?
To go from what we need to what the city needs?
Yeah, just throw us a bone.
We haven't, getting hit pretty cold here, we haven't even considered that. I have no idea what the cost is,
I'm sure he
what
could
the upside
can
is.
tell you. The only difference is the cost of the pipe. You got to dig the ditch anyway.
Yeah, I assume it's about twice the cost from 8 to 12, but I don't know, maybe it's 40%, I don't know.
Oh, you got any idea? You help him a little?
We'll worry about it when we get there.
I'm just trying to see if he'll make any concession. That's all I'm doing.
I do want to specify the 8-inch line is not necessarily guaranteed. They need to do a fire flow analysis to determine what pressures they have out there. So they may be required to put in a 12-inch line, and then we're talking the difference between a 12 and a 16. It could run anywhere from 30 to 50% more, depending on the delta between, if we're talking 12 to 16 or an 8 to 16.
Okay, I was just trying to get some concession. For the city of Friendswood?
I think what I heard, Park, is as we design the utilities, if you would consider that, we would be greatly appreciative. Thank you.
We have a lot of design considerations,
Okay.
Absolutely.
Councilman Gustafson?
I merely wanted to point out there was, that there are installation costs that increase also with the size of larger pipe. It's more than just digging the pipe.
Okay.
That was,
Somebody call a question? No? Darn. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, this may be a question for the city attorney, but do we have the option of modifying the rules so that we can get all the engineering analysis complete between the first and second reading, so council can be in the loop on the results of those?
That's not how the application was presented.
Any other discussion? Question? No, sir. No, would you call a question?
I'll call the question.
Question's been called. Seeing no more discussion, all those in favor?
This on the question?
Call the
All
question.
those-
Is this on calling the question?
Yeah, calling the question.
This
All
is
those,
on calling the question.
all those in favor calling the question. Question's been called. Okay, all those in favor of the motion on the table? All those opposed? Motion carries. Item D. We've got a long way to go. Second and final reading of an ordinance amending the zone classification of 110 or 1100 to 1110 South Friendswood Drive, being a tract or parcel containing 3.665 acres known as Lot 1, Block 1 of the final plat of Cowards Creek Office Park. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Communication from the mayor and council members. Councilmember Gustafson?
I'm good.
Pass. Pass.
Pass. Nope. Closed executive session. Executive conference room adjacent to council chamber, City Hall. Communication from the public regarding executive session topics. Council may convene into executive session in accordance with Texas Local Government Code pursuant to section 551074 personal matters to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee. Evaluation of the city attorney. Open session, item 20, discussion and possible action regarding the annual review of the city attorney. Do I hear a motion? Motion to approve. A 2.7% increase?
I second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Show it to be unanimous, we're adjourned.